the way that I did go. Now I went forward for a space, and took heed not to look backwards, but to be strong of heart and spirit, for that which did lie before me had need of all my manhood and courage of soul, that I come to the succour of that maid afar in the darkness of the world, or meet my death proper, as it might need to be. And thus did I go forward steadfastly, and conscious in all my being of the emotions of that parting from my mighty home, and of the tenderness and wiseness that did underlie so much curbed rule and guidance. And my heart was warm towards the master Monstruacan for that great honour, that he should come downward in armour to make one with the full watch, that he might uphold me to a lofty spirit at the moment of my going. And all that time, as I went forward, was the ether of the night about me, in tumult with the thoughts and blind wishings of the great millions I had but now left to my back. And presently, as I steadied somewhat upon my emotions, I was conscious of the exceeding coldness of the night air, and of the different taste of it upon my lungs and in the mouth, and it had, as it were, a wondrous keen sharping upon my palate, and did fill the lips more in the breathing, so that it may be supposed it had more body within it than that air which did fill the plateau of the 1000th city, where was my home. For the air of every city was of difference, and the greater between one that was afar up and another nigh to the earth, as may be thought, so that many peoples did migrate unto that level which gave them best healthfulness, but under rule, and with a guidance of quantities. And not all that were lacking of health, for some are ever contrary. And here let me set down that, within the deeps of the fields, there was air utter varied and wonderful, that might charm one here, and likewise sorrow another, that were happier elsewhere, so that all might have suiting, did they but wander, and have reason to companion them. And thus did I go forward, full of new thoughts and olden memories, and fresh breaking wonders, neither forgetting something of doubts and fears more than a little. And again was it most cunning strange to be out there in the nightland, though not yet afar, where often had my fancies and imaginings led me, yet until that time never had I touched foot in all that life upon the outward earth. And this must be a wondrous quaint seeming thought to those of this present day. And so came I, at last, nigh to the circle that did go about the redoubt, and presently I was come to it, and something astonished was I that it had no great bigness, for I had looked for this by reasoning, having always a mind to picture things as they might be truly, and hence coming sometimes to the wonder of a great truth, but odd whiles to errors that others had not made. And now, lo, I did find it, but a small, clear tube that had not 2 inches of thickness, yet sent out a very bright and strong light, so that it seemed greater to the eye, did one but behold from a distance. And this is but a little thing to set to the telling, yet may it give something of the newness of all. And, moreover, shall you have memory with me in this place, how that oft had I seen things and beast monsters peer over that same little tube of light, their faces coming forward out of the night. And this had I seen as child and man, for as children we did use to keep oft a watch by hours upon an holiday time through the great glasses of the embrasures, and we did always hope each to be that one that should first discover a monster looking inwards upon the mighty pyramid, across the shining of the circle, and these to come oft, yet presently to slink away into the night, having, in verity, no liking for that light. And pride had we taken of ourselves to perceive those monsters which had most of ugliness and horror to commend them, for thereby did we stand to have won the game of watching, until such time as a more fearsome brute be discovered. And so went the play, yet with ever It doth seem to me now something of a half-known shudder to the heart, and a child's rejoicing unknowingly in that safety which had power to make light the seeming of such matters. And this, also, is but a small matter, yet doth it bear upon the inwardness of my feelings, for the memories of all my youth and of the many beasts that I had seen to peer across the light did come upwards in my mind in that moment, so that I did give back a little, unthinking of what I did, but having upon me the sudden imagining of that which might come out of the dark beyond. And I, to stand a little moment, and presently had grown free in my heart to have courage of farewell, and so did turn me at last to the viewing of that wondrous home of the last millions of this world. And the sight was an astonishment and an uplifting, that indeed there was so mighty a thing in all the earth, and well might be that there were monsters and forces gathered together about that hill of life, out of all the darkness of the world, for the thing was as a mighty mountain that went up measureless into the night, and spread out upon the earth to the right and to the left of me, so that it did seem to hold all the world with its might. And in the nearer slope were there 300,000 great embrasures, as well I did know, there being in all the four sides of the redoubt 1,200,000 embrasures, as was set out in the books of the schools, and upon the cover of atlas books, as they still quaintly to be called, and many another place, as might be supposed. And half a mile upward was the lowest tier of those great window places, and above that countless other tiers. And a great light came out from them into the darkness, so that I looked up into the night many miles, and yet did see them in shining rows, and did make separate each embrasure from its fellow for a great way. But there grew yet more above in the mighty distance, so that they were lost in the upward space of the night, and did seem to me presently but as a constant glimmering fire that did shape a shining peak into the blackness of the heavens, dwindling into the utmost height. And thus was that everlasting monument. Then did it come to me that those little things which I did see to cluster against the embrasures were in truth the countless millions of the mighty redoubt, and this I could make out with some plainness in those lower embrasures, which were the more near to me than they above. For the peoples were set against the light within, yet were as small things like unto insects in that distance, and within so huge a bulk. And I knew that they looked out upon me, and did watch through their spy-glasses. And I sent my gaze upwards again along that great slope of grey metal. Aye! Upward again to where it strode, glimmering into the blackness, and so at last to the little star that did crown that wonder of the world in the eternal night. And for a little I did stare towards that far light, for it came from within that tower of observation where so lately I had spended my life, and I had knowledge within my heart that the dear Master Monstruacan did bend the great spy-glass upon me, through which so oft had I spied. And I raised the discus unto him in salutation and farewell, though I saw him not at all through that vast space. And my heart was very full, yet my soul but the stronger for it. And then, behold, I was aware of a murmur in the night, coming to me, dim and from afar off, and I saw the little shapes of the peoples in the lower embrasures in constant movement, and I knew upon the instant that the multitudes did take that salute unto themselves, and cried out and waved to me their farewells, or to come back as may be. And, indeed, I was but a lonesome person looking up at that great mountain of metal and life, and I knew that I had danger to realize my plight, and I stayed no more, but did raise the discus reversed, as was but meet from one young man unto all the millions, and I looked swiftly upward through those 8 great miles of night unto that final light which did shine in the black heavens, so that my friend should know that I thought of him. That was beyond my sight in that last moment, and it may be that the invisible millions that were far up in the night in the upper cities did take that also to be a meaning of farewell to themselves. For there came down out of the monstrous height a far, faint murmur of sound, as of a vague wind up in the night. Then did I lower the discourse, and turn me about. And I breasted strangely against the air clog, and stepped forward across the circle into the lonesomeness of the nightland. And I looked no more behind, for that which was my home did weaken my heart somewhat to behold, so that I made determination that I look not again to my back for a great while. Yet, about me as I went, there was constant surging in the ether of the world, and it did tell unto me how that those, my people and kin, had continual mind of me, both in prayer and wishings, and in a perpetual watching. And the same gave to me a feeling as of being something companied, yet in a time it came to me that this disturbance of the ether should tell to some evil force how that I was there abroad in the land. But how to stop this thing? Who should have power? For, of truth, had I been among them to make a full explaining of the danger, they had been yet powerless to cease. For but to have such great multitudes a think upon one matter was to set a disturbance about, as should be most clear to all. Now, at the beginning, I did walk outwards into the nightland, somewhat blindly and without sure direction, being intent only to put a good space to my back, that I might cure somewhat the ache which did weaken my heart at the first. But in a while I ceased somewhat from my over-swiftness, and did put thought to my going. And I came quickly to reason that I should try a new way through the land, for it might be that there was an over-watchfulness in that part which had been trod by the youths. And I began therewith to set this thought to the practice, and went not direct towards the north, but to the north and west, and so in the end to mean to circle around to the back of the northwest watcher, and thence to the north of the plain of blue fire, and afterwards, as might be, have a true and straight way to the north, and by this planning come a long way clear of that house of silence, which did put more fear upon me than all else that was horrid in the land. Yet, as all will see, this made to me a greater journey, though, in verity, it were better to go slowly and win to success, than to make a greater haste towards destruction, which was, indeed, surely to be mine end, did I not go warily. Now it may be thought upon with wonder that I did go so assuredly to the north, but I went this wise part by an inward knowing, and part come upon by much latter studying, within the pyramid, of olden books, and by reasoning upon all things that I did observe, that had seemings of verity in them. And because of this constant searching upon one matter, I had come, but a while back, upon a little book of metal, very strange and ancient, that had lain forgot in a hid place in the great library through 100,000 years, maybe, or less or more, for all that I had knowing, and much that was writ in the book was common knowledge, and set mostly to the count of fairy tales and such like, even as we of this our age take not over surely any belief in myths of olden times. Yet had I always much liking for such matters, perceiving behind that outer shell which did win always so much unbelief, the kernel of ancient truths and happenings. And thus was it, concerning this little book which I had made discovery of, for it told again that which oft I had heard, even as we in this age read of the deluge, how that once, in a time monstrous far back from that, but utter future to this age of ours, the world did break upwards in a vast earth, quaking, that did rend the world for 1,000 miles. And there came a mighty chasm, so deep that none might see the bottom thereof, and there rushed therein an ocean. And the earth did burst afresh with a sound that did shake all the cities of the world. And a great mist lay upon the earth for many days, and there was a mighty rain. And indeed, this was just so set in certain histories of the ancient world. Also, there was made reference to it within some olden records, yet now wise to be taken with a serious mind to the seeming of the peoples of the mighty pyramid, but only as a quaint study for the students, and to be set out in little tales that did entertain the nurseries, or, as it might be, wise men and the general. Yet there was this about that small and peculiar book, that it did speak of many of these things, as it were, that it did quote from the pens of those that did have actual witness, and set all out with a strange gravity that did cause one to consider it as meant to be indeed the tellings of truth, and to seem this wise to have great difference from all that I had read before concerning those matters. And there was, further, a part in the ending of the book that did seem to be writ of a time that came afterwards, maybe 100,000, and maybe 1,000,000 years. But who shall say? And therein it did tell of an huge and mighty valley that did come out of the west towards the southeast, and made turning thence northwards, and was 1,000 miles both ways. And the sides thereof were 100 miles deep, and the sun did stand in the western end, and made a red gloom for 1,000 miles. And in the bottom there were great seas, and beasts, strange and awesome, and very plentiful. Now this, as may be seen, was as the talk of romance, yet did I turn my wits to their natural end, and made thus plain of it. For, in truth, I to have something of belief, and it to seem to me that in a bygone eternity, when the world was yet light, as in my heart I knew to have been indeed a thing of verity, there was a great and wondrous earthquake, and the earthquake did burst the world up along a certain great curve where it had weakness, and there fell into the yawning furnace of the world one of the great oceans, and immediately made of itself steam, and so brake upwards again, and tore the earth mightily in its swift uprising. And thereafter there was a mist and confusion and rain upon the world, and indeed all very seemly put, and not to be taken as a light tale. Then, in that ending of the book, there was one that did write, having lived in a vast later age, when the sun had come anigh to his dying, and the upward earth was grown quiet and cold, and not good to live upon. And in that time the mighty chasm had been calmed by the weight of an eternity, so that it was now a most deep and wondrous valley, that did hold seas and great hills and mountains, and in it were great forests of kinds, and lands that were good and healthful, and places given over to fire, and to steamings and sulphur clouds, so that they held poisons that had ill for man. And great beasts were there down in that far depth that none might see ever, save by a strong spyglass. And such they were in the early world, and had now been bred in the ending by those inward forces of nature which did make the valley a place of good warmth, so that there was, as it were, once more the primal world born to give new birth unto such olden monsters, and to others, new and peculiar to that age and circumstance. And all this, indeed, did the book give also, but constrained and difficult to take clearly to the heart, and not like to the wise plain speech of the early tellings, so that I must even set it out here in mine own speech. And it did seem to me, by my reading, that man had come at one time to a great softness of heart and spirit through many ages of over-ease, but that the world did come to coldness and unfriendliness, by reason of the sun's slow ceasing. And there was presently, in naturalness, a race upon the earth that were hardy and made to fight for their lives, and did perceive that the mighty valley that cut the world in twain was a place of warmth and life, and so did make to adventure their bodies down that wondrous height, and were many ages coming safe to the bottom, but did find safe places in the downward way, where they built them houses, and made to live, and begot them children. And these grew up to that life of constant and great climbings, and of hard workings upon the road, which was the one intent of that people, so that the book did speak of them always as the road makers. And thus did they make downwards through the long years and the ages, and many generations did live and die, and saw not the reaching of the road down into that great vale that lay so monstrous deep in the world. But in the end they did come there with the road, and they were very hardy, and they did fight with the monsters, and slay many, and they built them many cities, through great years in the mighty valley, and did make the road from city unto city along that great valley, even unto the bight of the valley. And they found here a constant darkness and shadow, for that the sun could not make a shining around that great corner. Yet even here they ceased not to make the road, but took it around, and a mighty way unto the north, passing it among strange fires and pits that burned from out of the earth. But there was presently such a power and horror of monsters and evil things in that valley of shadow, that the road-makers were made to go backwards into the red light which did fill the westward valley and came from that low sun. And they went back unto their cities, and lived there mayhaps 100,000 years, and grew wise and cunning in all matters. And their wise people did make dealings, and had experiment with those forces which are distasteful and harmful unto life. But they did this in ignorance. For all that they had much wisdom, thinking only to experiment, that they come to greater knowings. But they did open a way for those forces, and much harm and pity did come thereby. And then had all people to have regret, yet too late. Now, presently, when 100,000 years had gone, or it may be a greater space, there came slowly the utter twilight of the world, as the sun to die the more, so that presently it gave but an utter gloomy light. And there grew upon many of the peoples of the cities of the valley a strangeness and a wildness, so that strange things were done, that had been shameful to all in the light. And there were wanderings and consortings with strange outward beings. And presently many cities were attacked by monsters that did come from the west, and there was a pandemonium. Then was an age of sorrows and fightings, and hardenings of the spirit and of the heart, for all that were of good fibre, and this did breed a determined generation. And there grew up into the world a leader, and he took all the sound, millions, and did make a mighty battle upon all foulness, and upon all that did harm and trouble them. And they drove their enemies down the valley and up the valley, and did utterly scatter and put them to flight. Then did that man call all his peoples together, and did make it plain how that the darkness grew upon the world, and that the foul and dreadful powers abroad were like to be more horrid when a greater gloom came. And he put to them that they build a mighty refuge, and the peoples did acclaim, and lo, there was built, presently, a great house. But the great house was not proper, and that man did take all the peoples to wander, and they came to the bight, and there was built at last that great and mighty pyramid. Now this is the sense and telling of that book. And but late had I read it, and talked somewhat of it with my dear friend, the master Monstruacan, but not overmuch, for I had taken so sudden a mind to G.O. that all else had dropped from about me. Yet To us it did seem clear that there was no life in all the invisible upper world, and that, surely, that great road whereon the silent ones did walk must be that same road which the hardy peoples of that age did make. And it did seem wise to the master Monstruacan, and unto me, that if any should find the lesser redoubt, they must surely do so somewhere within the mighty valley. But whether the road that led into the west, where was the place of the abhumans, should bring me to it, I had no knowing, nor whether it might lie on the northward way. And I, maybe, to wander 1,000 miles wrong, if, in truth, I were not into some dreadful trouble before. And, indeed, no reason of value was there to give me hope that the lesser pyramid lay either to the west or where the road went northward, beyond the House of Silence. Yet I did so feel it to be somewhere to the north that I had made a determination to search that way for a great distance, the first, and if I could not come upon aught, then I should have sober thought that it did lie westward. But in the valley some ways, I had feeling of assurance that it must be, for it was plain that the telling of the book was sound in its bottom sense, as might be seen. For how should any live in the utter bleak and deadly chill of the silent upper world that lay 100 miles up in the night, hid and lost forever? And strange is it to think of those wondrous and mighty cliffs that girt us about, and yet were fast held from us in the dark, so that I had not known of them, save for the telling of that book, though, in truth, it had been always supposed that we lived in a great deep of the world, but, indeed, it was rather held in belief that we abode in the bed of some ancient sea, that did surely slope gradual away from us, and not go up abrupt and savage. And here let me make so clear as I may that the general peoples had no clear thought upon any such matters, though there was something of it taught in the schools, yet rather this and that of diverse conclusions, as it might be thinkings of the teachers after much study and some ponderings. For one man, having a lack of imagining, would scoff, and another, maybe, to take it very staidly, but some would build fancy upon the tellings of the records, and make foolish and fantastic that which had groundings in truth, and thus is it ever. But to the most peoples of the pyramid there was no deep conviction nor thought of any great head whirled afar in the darkness, for they gave attention and belief only to that which lay to their view, nor could a great lot come to imagine that there had been ever any other condition. And to them it did seem right and meet that there should be strange things, and fires from the earth, and an ever-abiding night, and monsters, and matters hid and tangled much in mystery. And very content were the most of them, though some had in them the yeast of imaginings, or the pimples of fancy upon them. And to these there seemed many possibilities, though the first to read out to sanity, and the second to expect and have speech towards much that was foolish or to no purpose. And of these vague believings of the peoples have I made hint before, and need not have much trouble to it now, save that, with the children, as is ever the way, those olden tales had much believing, and the simplicity of the wise did mate with the beliefs of the young, and between them did lie the truth. And so did I make speed towards the north, having a strong surety in my heart and mind that there were but two ways to my search, for without of the valley, afar up in the dead lonesomeness of the hidden world, was a cold that was shapen ready to death, and a lacking, as I must believe, of the sweet, needful air that yet did lie in plenty in that deep place of the earth, so that, surely, the mighty valley somewheres to hold that other redoubt. Yet, as I have said, I went not direct to my journey, but otherwise, for those sound reasons which I did set down a time back. The Nightland. Now, As I went towards the north and west, I steered me warily for a great while, that I come safe of that great watcher of the northwest. And as I made forward, I put thought to all matters which must concern me, so far as I had imagining to see. And first I did consider the speed that I should keep, and found presently that I did well to be moderate, for that I had before me a great and mighty journey, and indeed who might speak knowingly of the end thereof? And another matter, I did arrange, for I would make the times of my goings forward, and the times of mine eatings and sleepings all to a wise and regular fashion, that thereby I might go a great way, with the less harm to my body, so that I should be strong when the need did come for my strength. And I made in the end that I should eat and drink at every 6th hour, and at the 18th hour sleep me until the 24th. And by this means did I eat thrice in that time, and have 6 hours of sleep. And this seemed very good to me, and I did strive always to manage thus in all my great journeying in the nightland. Yet, as may be supposed, there were times oft and many when I must watch without ceasing, and leave my slumber unto the future, for the land was full of grim and dreadful perils. And, as doth be human, I brake my rules straightway in the beginning, for I ceased not to walk for 21 hours, hiding and creeping, as the need did be in those places that were like to show me unto the watcher. And when I did think upon food, it did sicken me, so that I would eat by and by, as I made it within my thoughts. But when 21 hours had gone, I grew very weary and something faint, and was forced that I look about for some place where I might have rest. And in a little while I did see, away off, a small fire-hole, the like of which I had passed odd times even so early. And I made to come nigh to that part, for there would be warmth from the chill of the nightland, and mayhaps a place dry and convenient to my slumber. And when I came anigh, I saw that it was a cheerful place, as it might be said, amid so much gloom, for the hole was but a few paces wide, and full of a dull, glowing fire, that did bubble somewhat, and throw off a small sulphur smoke. And I sat me down, at no great way, and did place the discus on the rock to my hand. And I moved not a while, but was aweary, so that I had not the courage to eat, neither to drink, but must turn me and look back to the mighty pyramid, and, in truth, though I had come a very good space, yet was I so anigh to it, that I was both cheered and put out of heart, for it did seem close upon me by reason of its greatness, so that I, who had journeyed a hard and weariful way, was shaken with the greatness of the task that was upon me. Yet was this but one side of my heart, for it was good to feel the nearness of my mighty home, and I knew that there did countless millions make watch upon me as I sat. Yet did I make no sign, for it is not meet to make a constant farewell, but to G.O. Yet was it very strange to be thus near, and to show such behaviour as were proper to one afar from all humanity. But so it was that I ordered my ways, for it did seem proper to me. Yet was I happy to know that the dear Master Monstruacan must, time and oft, have spied upon me through the great spyglass, and mayhaps did watch me in that moment. And it grew in me that I did act weakly to hold off from mine victuals, and showed foolishness before my kind friend afar. And I did ope my scrip, and take therefrom 3 tablets, the which I chewed and did eat, for this was a strong food, treated that it had but small bulk, yet were they not filling to the belly, and I made that I would drink well, that I might feel that something was therein. And to this end I shook from a strong and especial tube a dust, and I caught the dust within a little cup, and the air did make an action upon that dust, as it were of chemistry, and the dust did boil and make a fizzing in the cup, and rose up and filled it with a liquid that was of simple water, yet very strange to see come that way, but ordinary after a time. And in this way, as might be seen, had I such food and drink in but a little scrip, that might keep life within me for a great time. Yet was it a way of discomfort, and lacking to the mouth and to the belly, but a sufficient thing unto the need of the body, and good matter for a thankful heart in that dark and hungry land. Now, when I had eaten, I did go over in their order those things which I did carry. For there was, beside the discourse and that scrip of food, a pouch that did contain matters various. And these I did look into, and afterward did take out a small compass that I had been give by the master monstruacan, so that I might find of its workings without the great redoubt, and he had said unto me, that it might be that I should pass far off into the night land, and lose the mighty pyramid amid so great a country, and so plentiful a darkness. Then, perchance, if that ancient principle did still lurk within the machine, though turned no more to the north, but unto the pyramid, then should it guide my feet homeward out of the everlasting night, and thus have once more that ancient use which, as I do know, is common unto this age. And this was a very cunning thing to have with me, if but it held service to the earth current, and a rare thing, which the master monstruacan did make with his own hands and much skill and pains, from an olden one that had place within the great museum, and concerning which I have told somewhat before this place. And I set the thing upon the ground, but it had no certain way with it, but did spin and waver constantly, and this I made to consider, and remembered that I was yet above that part where afar in the earth did spread the greatness of the underground fields, and I was, haply, but a little way off from the crack, though a mighty way above, and it pleasured me to wonder whether the dear master monstruacan did behold how that I made test with the compass, for the light was good from the fire-hole, and the great spyglass had a great strength. Yet had I no certainty, for, as I did know, from much watchings, there was no surety in the searching of the land, by the glass, for there was oft plainness where you did think surely none should see, and anon a dullness where might be thought that the sight went gaily. And this may be plain to all, for the wavering of the lights from the strange fires was not to be accounted to rule, but made a light here, and a darkness there, and then did change about oddly. Moreover, there were smokes and mists that did come upwards from the earth in this place and in that, and had somewhiles a greatness, but oft were small, and did lurk low, and had no power but to confuse the sight. And, presently, I did put by the compass in my pouch, and made to compose myself unto sleep. But here would I now set down how that, in the end, after I had gone many days' journeyings outward from the mighty pyramid, I did indeed find it to draw the northward part of the needle unto it, and this was a comfort and a pleasure to my spirit. Moreover, if ever I did get back, as I did think, it would be a matter for great interest unto the master monstruacan, yet, in verity, were there other matters that should hold him more, for he was right human, as all should know. And, moreover, concerning this same compass, I did find a fresh thing, for after a yet greater time, as I shall set out in a due place, if I do but remember, which doubt is ever my fear to fret me, I came a mighty way from the redoubt, and, lo, fearing that I might indeed lose that, my great home, in the darkness of the world, I did pull out that strange wonder of the needle, that I might have comfort by its homeward pointing. And I did discover a new power in the night, for the machine did point no more directwards unto the great redoubt, but was a point unto the westwards, so that I had knowledge that some great power afar in the darkness of the world did sway upon it, and I had a childlike wonder that this might be, in truth, that same power of the north, of which the books and my memory dreams did tell. And, indeed, no doubt should there be upon this matter, yet who might not have doubt in that time that they should perceive, after an eternity, that ancient northward force swaying that small servant unto an olden obedience? And it was, as it were, a revealing unto me, how that to know within the brain is one matter, but to have knowledge within the heart is another. For I had always known concerning this northward force, but yet had not known with the true meaning of knowledge. And yet one other matter there was to cause doubt at that moment of this new knowing, for it came to me that maybe the power of that lesser redoubt did begin to act upon the machine, even as the earth current of the great pyramid did hold yet a strong drawing upon the needle. And were this so, then did I not surely begin to stand an eye unto my journey's end, for that less power of the lesser redoubt could have no impudence to pull, save that I had come to a closeness with it. Yet in truth, as I do now have knowledge, it was the north that drew, and I do seem to make a great telling about this little matter. But how else shall I show to you mine inward mind, and the lack of knowledge, and likewise the peculiar knowings that did go to the making of that time, and the peoples thereof, which is but to say the same thing twice over? And now, as I did say, I made to compose myself for sleep, and to this end I took a cloak matter, which did cross my shoulder and hip, and wrapped it about me, and lay down there in the darkness of the night by that strange fire-hole. And I lay the discourse beside me within the cloak, for it was indeed my companion and friend in bitter need, so that I had pleasure to feel the strange thing anigh to me. And as I did lie there, in those moments that do drowse the soul, as it were, that they do proceed as breath out of the mouth of sleep, I had a half knowing that the ether did surge about me. And I doubt not but that they had watched my every doing, many of the millions, and had been humanly stirred at my commending of my spirit unto sleep, and thus did shake the ether of the world about me with their unity of sympathy. And, mayhaps, I had some little knowing of this thing as I did pass, drowsy, into slumber, and it is surely like that I slept the better for it. Moreover, I was wondrous tired and worn, and thus did sleep very strong and heavy. Yet I mind me that my last dim thinkings were upon that sweet maid I did go to find. And in slumber did I have speech with her in dreams, and a strange happiness about me, and all seeming to be touched by fairy light, and freed from the sorrow of life. And it was from a sweet and lovely sleeping, such as this, that I was waked suddenly by a great and mighty sound, and I came instant to a possessing of my senses, and I knew that the mighty voice of the home call did go howling across the night. And, swift and silent, I slid the cloak from about me, and took the haft of that wondrous discourse into mine hand. And I did look towards the pyramid quickly for a message, for I had a sure knowledge that there had a great need arisen, and that some terror came towards me out of the dark, else they had never waked all the nightland to a knowing that an human was abroad out of the mighty refuge. And even as I did peer towards the great redoubt, I could not abide to keep my gaze entire that way, but did take a large and fearful look all about me, yet could make to see nothing, and so did stare, eager and anxious, afar into the upper blackness of the night, where did shine that final light of the tower of observation, and the same while crouched, and holding the discourse, and making to glance across my shoulders, and to watch for the message, and all in the same moment. And then Afar upwards in the prodigious height, I did see the great and bright and quick darting flashes of a strange green fire, and did know that they spelled to me in the set speech a swift warning that a grey monster, that was a great grey man, had made scent of me in the dark, and was even in that moment of time crawling towards me through the low moss bushes that lay off beyond the fire-hole to my back. And the message was sharp, and bade me to leap into the bushes unto my left, and to hide there, so that I might chance to take the thing to an advantage. And, as may be thought, they had scarce flashed the tale unto me, but I was gone in among the shadows of a clump of the moss bush that did grow anigh, and I sweat with a strange terror, and a cold and excited shaking of the heart, yet was my spirit set strong to conquer, and lo, as I did crouch there hidden, I saw something come very quiet out of the bushes that did grow beyond the fire-hole, and it was great, and crept, and was now ways coloured, but by greyness in all its parts, and the glare from the fire-hole did seem to trouble it, so that it looked, laying its head to the ground, and spying along the earth in a strange and brutish fashion, that it might oversee the glare of the fire-hole. Yet I doubt that it saw beyond the fire with plainness, for in a moment it crept swift in among the bushes again, and came out towards the edge of the fire-hole in another place, and this it did thrice unto my left, and thrice unto my right, and every time did lay its head to the earth, and spy along, and did hunch its shoulders, and thrust forward the jaw horridly, and turn the neck, as a very nasty beast might go wanton. Now, as you may think, this manner of the beast-man did shake my courage mightily, for I did think each time that it did go inward among the moss bushes, that it had made discovery of me, and would make to take me in the back, from out of the dark of the bushes, and this was an uncomfortable thing to consider, as others might think also, had any been there in the bush with me. And then, in truth, did that same swift sense of mine, hearing, prove helpful to my saving, for, behold, the thing did go back into the moss bushes after that last coming out, and did seem to make as it had made a failing to discover me, and had no further intent, save to return unto the night. And I had this thought truly in mine heart, and for maybe a minute, and then, lo! Within my soul a voice did speak plain, and did warn me that the thing did make a great compass among the moss bushes about the fire-hole, having made discovery of me, and it did go warily to take me in the back from the other side. Now, when I heard this voice speak within my spirit, I had knowledge that the dear master Monstruacan made watch from the tower of observation, and did send the speech with his brain elements, having in mind that I had the night hearing. And I trusted the speech, for in the same moment of time there did beat all about me in the night the solemn throb of the master word, as that it had been added with speed, to give instant assurance. And I leapt quick from that clump of the moss bush unto another, and crouched, and made a watch all about me, and kept the ears of my spirit open, knowing that the master Monstruacan did also watch all for me. And suddenly I saw a little moving of a bush that grew to the back of those bushes in which I had been hid, and there came out of the bush that moved a great grey hand, and moved the moss of the clump where I had been, as it were, that something peered out of the moving bush. And there followed the great grey head of the grey man, and the head went into the clump of the moss bush where I had been, and I knew that I must strike now, and I leapt and smote with the discus, and the thing fell upon its side, and the great grey legs came out of the hither bushes and twitched and drew upwards, but the head remained in the bush where I had been hid, and I stood away from the thing whilst it died, and in mine hand the discus did spin and send forth fire, as it were, that it did live, and did know that it had slain a great and horrid monster. And presently the grey man was dead, and I went away from those bushes unto the far side of the fire-hole. And I stood with the discus held high, and spinning and sending out fire, that they within the mighty pyramid might know that I had slain the beast-man, for it might be that it lay too much in the shadow for them to look upon. But the master Monstruacan spoke not again to me, for, indeed, it was not meet to do so, except it might save me from a sure danger. For, as you may know from my past tellings, there were powers of the Nightland that did hearken unto such matters, and it was like enough that there had been overmuch done, even thus, for my further safety, yet the thing could not be helped. And now that I was a little calmed and eased from my fear, I could know that all that the ether of the night was disturbed by the gladness of the millions within the great redoubt, so that it was plain how great a multitude had given note unto the fight, and their hearts to beat in sweet sympathy and natural fear, so that I did feel companied and befriended, though, as it may be thought, something shaken yet about the heart. Now, in a little time, I did gather unto me my wits, and had myself to order, and I looked to see how the hours did go, and I found that I had surely slumbered through 10 hours. And I reproached myself, for, indeed, I had slept oversound by reason of my having lacked a regular way and time, as I had with a proper wisdom made to be my rule. And I resolved that I would obey the wit of my reason in all the future time, and make to eat and rest in due season, as you will woot that I did before intend. Then, with a self-reproachful heart, I went around the small fire-hole, and caught up my cloak and other matters. And I turned me towards the mighty pyramid, and did look once upwards along all the great slope, where it did go measureless into the far blackness of the everlasting night, and I made no salutation, for I had so resolved, as you will know, moreover. I desired not to call forth any unneedful disturbance of the ether of the world, which indeed must be, did I make to stir the emotions of the millions. And I turned me then away, and went off into the night, going swift and cautious, and bearing the discourse cunningly, and almost, as it were, with a love for that strange and wondrous weapon that had so befriended me, and slain the foul grey man with one stroke. And I had feeling that it did know me, and had a comradeship for me, and I doubt none will understand this, save, it might be, they of the olden days that did carry one strong sword always. Yet was the discourse more than the sword, for it did in truth seem to live with the fire and the flame of the earth current that did beat within it, and it was well acknowledged within the great redoubt that none might touch the discourse of another, for that the thing went crustily, as it might be said, in the hands of a stranger, and if any made foolishness of this knowledge, and did persist much to such an handling or making to use, the same would presently act clumsy with the weapon, and come to an hurt. And this was a sure thing, and had been known maybe 100,000 years, or perchance a greater time. And by this it doth seem wise to believe that there did grow always an affinity between the nature of the man, which doth, as ever, include the woman and the discourse that he did use in his practice, and because of this known thing, and that the place would elsewise be lumbered with olden weapons of those that did die, it was a law and usage that there was placed with the dead the discourse of the dead. There upon the last road in the country of silence, and was thus made to give back unto the earth current the power that did lie in it. And this doth seem to a careless thinker, as it were, that I told once again those olden customs of the ancient folk, but this is otherwise, and had a sound reason to it, yet, if you do so believe, I doubt not, but that a right human sentiment was something at the bottom, which is proper, for it is meet that love should mate with wisdom to mother. comfort in our sorrows, and it is a warm thing to do, aught for our dead, and none may say nay to this. Now, as I did go onwards into the nightland, looking ever to this shadow and to that, it may be conceived how my heart would stir with swift fear at this and that my body would oft quiver to leap aside, and as swift discover that naught assailed. And so did I go forward, and always with imaginings and wonders concerning what manner of uncouth being or brute might come out of the darknesses all about. Yet, in all that time, there was a certain proudness of the heart that I did come safe out of the power of the grey man, and did surely slay him. But, truly, it were well that the praise be considered, and not overmuch given unto me, for I had died as I slept, but that they of the great redoubt had made a watch over me, and waked me unto my saving. Now, presently, as I walked, I grew something faint, and had knowledge that I did foolishly. For, indeed, I should have eat after my fight, yet may I be forgiven for this forgetting, in that I had been much shaked and put about. And I sat me down in a little clear place among the bushes, and did eat 3 of the tablets, and did once more shake forth the dust that did turn in the air to a natural water, by a proper and natural chemistry of these matters. And after I had eat, I sat a little while, and did think, and did look upwards at the great slope of the pyramid in the night, and all the time did I listen with mine ears and with my spirit, and kept the discus across my knees, and looked this way and that, very frequent, but nothing came anigh. And so I rose presently, and went onwards, and walked for 6 hours towards the north and the west. And I made much to the west, for a little, that I might come clear of the northwest watcher. Yet, after a space, I made to do foolishly, for I changed my mind about, and kept something more towards the north, so that I should have a surer sight of that monster. And this was, in truth, a rash and naughty thing to consider. For if I were but seen, then should that grim brute make a signal unto the evil powers, and I be met swiftly with destruction. But surely the heart is a strange and wayward thing, and given to quick fears, and immediately unto great and uncountable rashnesses. And so I did go forward unwisely to the northward of a safe and proper going, and it may be that an influence was upon me, and drew me thatwards, but who shall say? Now, a great time I walked, and made a halt upon every 6th hour, and did eat and drink, and look a little unto the monstrous towering of the great redoubt, and afterwards make strong mine heart, and go forward again. And always I did go warily, and chiefly among the low moss bush, but sometimes out upon stony ground, and oft across places where sulphur did puff somewhat from the ground in a low smoke, very strong in the nostrils, and not liked inwardly. And as I made onwards, I looked always to my right and to my left, and anon to the rear, yet made a constant observation of the mighty watcher that I did begin to draw nigh unto. And oft did I stoop to crawl, and my hands did bleed somewhat, but after I was troubled so, I put on the great gloves that made complete the grey armour, and so was shod proper to such journeying. And, presently, when 18 hours did have passed, since that my sudden awakening to the peril of the grey man, I did search about for a place to slumber, for I would keep wisely unto my ruling, and go not over long lacking of sleep, and by this planning I should be the less like to sleep over sound, and so should set my spirit to listen whilst I did sleep. And by so much as my spirit should serve me with faith, should I have safety. And this thing is plain, and wants not more to the saying thereof. And I came presently unto a sudden place where the land did go downwards brokenly, as that it had been, burst a great while gone by the inward fires, And I looked downwards over the edge of that place, and went round about it, and did see presently a ledge upon the far side, that was difficult to come upon, yet a place of some little safety to any that might go down to it, for it was awkward to see. And did any monster seek to come at me, I should have chance of warning, and might go downwards a greater way in time to my salvation. And by this determination I abode, and came down to that place with labour, but was cheerful of heart, that I had found so sure a shelter. And I eat my 3 tablets, and drank the water that I did get from the powder, and so made to compose my body to sleep. Yet at this time a thought did come to me, and I made calculation afresh, and laughed somewhat at that, my poor counting. For indeed I had thought to eat but thrice in the 24 hours, yet by my arranging I was made, indeed, to eat 4 times, as you shall see immediately by a little thought. And this thing came more strong upon my spirit than any might think. For I did eat overmuch for the lasting of the food, though, in verity, it was but little to my belly, as you must all think, and have sympathy for my discomfort. And I considered a little, and had determined that I should afterwards, in my journeying, eat but 2 of the tablets to my meal, and this was a wise thought, and, like much wisdom, a discomposing thing. But so it was, and I set it down, that you may know the arranging of my ways at that time. Now, in all this while of meditation, I had been setting my cloak about me, and was fast set to my sleeping, for I had walked a weary way, and I lay me down upon my left side, with my back to the rock, which did overhang me something above, so that I was contented to feel hid from things that might pass by in the night. And I had the cloak about me, and the discourse close against my breast, within the cloak, and my head upon my pouch and upon my scrip. And as I lay thus a moment easeful, I could see that so mighty was the uprising of the great pyramid, that it was not hid from me even thus, but did stand upward into the night, and did shine, and was plain to be seen above the further edge of that deep place where I did lie, and I fell upon sleep, looking upward at that final light, where, as might be, the master monstruous did bend the great spy-glass upon my lonesomeness, as I lay there upon the ledge. And this was a thought of sweet comfort upon which to slumber, the which I did, but my spirit lay wakeful within my breast, and did listen through the night, and harked for all evil matters and things that did make to come anigh. But also my spirit did whisper unto Nani as I went into sleep, and so passed I into dreams. Now it may be thought that I did act with a strange valiance, in that I composed my body so properly to slumber, and with but a little trouble of the heart concerning the coming of monsters. And in truth this hath seemed somewhat so to me, thinking since that time, but I do but set the thing that is truth, and make not to labour to an illusion of truth, and so must tell much that doth seem improper to the reality. Yet must all bear with me, and have understanding of the hardness of setting forth with true seeming the honesty of truth, which, in verity, is better served oft times by timely and cunning lies. And so shall you understand this matter so well as I, and presently my spirit waked me there in the half-dark of the night-land, and I looked swift about me and upwards, and saw nothing to fear. Then did I peer at my dial, and made to discover that I had slept full over 6 quiet hours, and by this I knew the reason of mine awaking, for it was so great impressed upon me by mine inward sense and being. And this you shall understand some ways, who have thought, ere sleep, to wake to a certain time of the morning, and by understanding shall you believe, and give me all your kind hearking and human sympathy. and I made to have a smartness of going which is ever hard to the newly waked, and I eat 2 tablets, the while my belly did cry out for an wholesome and proper filling, but I drank some of the water, and so did ease somewhat of my hunger. Then did I wind my cloak to its shape, and put upon me my gear, which was the scrip and the pouch and the discos to my hip, and I clomb out from that place of rest. Yet before I did come rightly up into the open, I peered about and made some surety that no evil brute was anigh, and then I gate me out, and stood upon my feet, and looked for a little upwards at the mighty slope of the great redoubt, which did seem yet very nigh unto me, by reason of it being so monstrous in bigness. And I wondered whether in that moment the master monstruacan did look down upon me with the great spyglass. And afterwards I turned away swiftly, and went on into the nightland, for it did always make me shaken with lonesomeness to look upon my great home. And so I did go forward with a strong and uncaring stride, but grew presently to quietness, and to have back the proper caution of my going. Yet had I not gone all foolishly, for I had taken the discos from my hip ere this, so that I possessed it handily. Now there is one matter which shall seem but a small and natural occurring unto you, yet was strong upon me in that time. And this thing was that I did begin now to see the nightland from the new outlooking of my distance from the mighty pyramid, and it was as that a man of this day did go from the earth to travel among the stars, and know, should he not find them to shift upon his vision, so that the Great Bear, and this and that shaping of the star clusterings, should make a new order, as he did wander onwards, and so should he find that there was naught that was truly fixed, as he did before then think, but all to alter according unto the place whence the looking. And this thing shall be plain unto you, though no thought be put to the matter, for it is of an evident verity that doth need not argument to expound. And so shall you have memory of me, there a wander among those strange shapings and wonders of that grim land, the which I had never but supposed to seem, but as my memory did retain them, from the lookings of all my life within the great redoubt. And so it was, and ever there did this thing and that open out to a new view, and the nightland take to itself a constant new aspect to mine eyes, which had never until that time had but the one fixed vision of the same. And you shall understand with me how that when, about the 14th hour of that day's travel, I did draw very nigh unto the monstrous watcher of the northwest, it did seem so utter strange from this fresh aspect that I had been like to think that I did see a new monster. For, in truth, when I did come at last to creep to within a mile of it, among the low moss bushes, I was confounded that the mighty chin did come forward towards the great redoubt, even as the upward part of a vast cliff, which the sea doth make hollow about the bottom. For it did hang out into the air above the glare of the fire from the red pit, as it had been a thing of rock, all scored and beweathered, and dull red, and seeming burned and blasted by reason of the bloody shine that beat upward from the deep of the red pit. And by the way in which I do tell upon it, you shall know that I did surely view it something from the side at this immediate time. For, in truth, it was then that I did draw the nearer, and, moreover, I was the more astonished at this viewing than I had been to the front, for it was so utter strange, and shapen so different from the brute that did hang in my memory. And a great time I did lie there upon my belly, and shaken by a fear of the beast, yet emboldened, as you may conceive, by having come to the side, and being hopeful in my heart that I was very secure within so great a shadow and the thick sheltering of the moss bushes. And surely it was that I did creep more nigh, the while that I did look, for presently I had a very plain seeing of the great monster, and did know where I had gotten to, and thereby did acknowledge unto myself that this was an utter foolishness, and like, for all that any might say, to lead unto destruction. Yet, as all must know, there was the first fear, and the ceasing of this fear, as I did wot that I was so little a thing to heed out there in the shadows, and presently a gaining of courage, and the prick of my being that did crave to see clear this exceeding wonder. And so was I, come close, more or less, having gone far upon my hands and knees, yet sometimes to pause, but afterwards on again. Now, by this nearness, I was the more truly able to perceive how that the bulk of the watcher did rise up into the night, like a hill, and the colour was mostly black, save and indeed where it did face to the red shine of the pit, and concerning this I have done telling. And so did I lie there and stare a great while, parting a small hole in the moss bushes that I might spy through the same. And the thing was squat there, and might have root within the earth. So it did seem to mine imaginings, as I did stare with a dumb wonder. And there were monstrous warts upon the thing, and indents, and a mighty ruggedness and lumpings, as it were that it did be pimpled with great boulders that were inbred within that monstrous hide. And where the shine from the pit of red fire did strike upon these, they did stand out into the darkness away from the skin, as you of this age shall see mountains of the moon catch a bright fire from the sun, and show plain upon the night of the moon. Now, as I have set down, I did lie there and look a great while, and it came presently to me that there was unease within the mighty pyramid among the millions, for I did feel the ether of the world to be disturbed by their distress, and so had a knowing that they had a cunning wareness concerning the place where I did hide among the moss bushes. And the thrilling in the night did bring a wisdom into my head, for, in verity, as I have said, this was a foolish matter that I was upon, and I gat a thought that the watcher might have an awareness of the trouble of the multitudes, and indeed, for all that I did know, it had a full knowledge of all my wandering, though concerning this I did think otherwise truly in my heart, as is a most human and proper way to make comfortable the spirit, where doubt can have no ease from reason. And I made that I would go backwards to a good distance from the watcher, and go forward again upon my journeying, if but that I come safe from so unwise an adventuring. And as I did begin to return, it was to me as that all my senses were newly awake, for I had a sudden knowing that I was within the atmosphere, should I not call it, of the monster. And I got an abrupt and horrid shaking of the spirit, for I did feel in verity that my soul had come too anigh, and that the beast had a sure knowledge concerning me, yet did make to my destruction with no haste, but after that way and fashion that did seem proper unto it. And this feeling you shall understand the better, maybe, when I do tell that it was to me as that the air all about me was full of a quiet and steadfast life and keen intelligence that I did believe to come forth from the watcher on every side, so that I did feel as one already within the gaze of some great and evil power. Yet, though I had a great terror upon me, I made no foolish haste, but commanded my soul to courage, and put a guard upon my way of going, and so made a very quiet journey, for maybe 2 full miles, and afterwards did allow myself something more of haste, for I was now grown easier in my spirit, and felt apart from the spirit of the great watcher. And after a longer while I did leave that hill of watchfulness to my rear, and was gone onward into the night, yet, as may be known, with a vague unease and trouble to my heart, and a swift and frequent turning to learn surely that no evil thing came after me. For, as you may know, I could nowise have forgetting concerning that great quiet life which did seem to be living in all the air around that mighty bulk. For it had been all about me in the night, as I have told, and I to feel that I had been surely discovered. And thus shall you know how shaken was my spirit in verity. Now, presently, at the 18th hour of that day's travel, I ceased from my journeying, that I might eat and drink, and I did sit a little while, and look back upon the strange and monstrous thing which I had come beyond, and the great humped back and vast shoulders of the watching thing rose up into the night, black and cumbrous against the red shine of the pit. And thus, as you shall think, had that brute looked always unto the mighty pyramid through eternity, and did cease not from watching, and was steadfast and silent and alone, and none did understand. And after I had eat and drunk some of the water, I went onward for a full matter of 6 hours more, being minded to have no sleep until I had put a great way between me and the watcher. And in this part of my journey did I come to the place where the Silent Ones kill, as it was named in the maps. And I observed a very wondrous caution, and went away from it a little unto the north, where I did see at a distance the shinings of fire-holes, the which did promise me warmth through my slumber. And here you must know that the place where the Silent Ones kill was an utter bare place, where all did seem of rock, and no bush did seem to grow thereon, so that a man might not come to any hiding. Though, in truth, there might be some hole here or there, yet was none shown in any map within the pyramid. Neither did there seem to be any such to me, as I did creep there among the moss bushes to the northward of the place, and look constant and fearful towards it, so that I should see quickly whether any Silent One did move across all the grey quiet of that rocky plain. And concerning this same place, where the Silent Ones kill, it were well to make an explanation how that there was always a little and far-spreaded light over all that lonesomeness, and the light was something grey seeming, as it were that a lichen might grow upon the rocks and send out a little uncomfortable glowing, even as certain matters do in these times, if you do but know the place and the time to seek them. Yet was the light exceeding weak, and very cold and dismal, and did seem truly to show naught with a sureness, so that it did appear to the eye, if one did look fixedly, that there were shadows that did move here or there, as it were of silent beings, and none might know, in truth, whether this shaping of the greyness was to the clouding of the reason, or that the eye did see of reality. Yet, if one did look with the great spyglass, then might there be some surety and plainness, and likewise was it so, if one did have come sufficient anigh to that uncomfortable place, even as I then did be. And so you shall conceive how that I did slide very quiet from bush unto bush, for I had alway in all my life had a very dread fear of this place, and oft did I peer out into the dim grey light of the lonesome plain unto my left, and would think sometimes to perceive the shapes of the Silent Ones stood vague and watchful, yet on the instant to see nothing. And thus I did go onward, and came presently to a part where the grey plain did stretch out a bareness into the nightland to my front, so that my way ended, unless I did make a long passing round about. And I sat there among the moss bushes, and did consider, and looked out cunningly through a spy-hole of the bush in which I did sit, and I perceived that the part of the plain which did jut bareness into the land before me had no greatness of size, but might be passed swiftly in but a little running. And this thing should save me a wearisome going round, so that I made to consider it with a serious mind. And all the time did I search the bare greyness before me, and saw presently that it was surely empty. And I made to adventure myself across, running very swift until I had come to the far side. And lo! As I did go to rise up out of the bush, mine eyes were opened, as it were, and I saw that there was something amid the constant greyness, and I fell quickly into the bush, and did sweat very chill, but yet did haste to look. And I saw now that there were, in truth, matters that did show vague upon that part of the plain that was before me. And I did peer very constant and anxious, and, behold, I saw that there was facing me a great line of quiet and lofty figures, shrouded unto their feet, and they moved not, neither made they any sound, but stood there amid the greyness, and did seem to make an unending watch upon me, so that my heart went unto weakness, and I did feel that there was no power of the moss bushes to hide me, for in verity they that stood so silent were certain of the silent ones, and I was very nigh to the place of destruction. Now I moved not for a time, but was made stiff by the greatness of my fear. Yet I was presently aware that the silent ones came not towards me, but stood quiet, as that they did mind not to slay me, if but I did keep from that place. And there grew therefrom a little courage into mine heart, and I obeyed my spirit, and took an hold of my strength, and went slowly backward in the bushes. And presently I was come a long way off, yet troubled and disturbed, and very strict to my going. And I made a great circling about that place where the plain of the silent ones did come outward, and so did gain to the northwest, and was thence something the happier in my heart, and went easily and oft upon my feet, yet making a strong watching to every side. And so I came at the last to a time when I had walked through 24 weariful hours, and was eager that I should come to a safe place for my sleep, yet did lack a happy belief of safety, in that I had come twice anigh to so grim trouble, and unsure I was that I did not be secretly pursued in the night. And this you shall believe to be a very desperate feeling, and a plight to make the heart sick, and to long with a great longing for the safety of that mine home. Yet had I put myself to the task, and truly I did never cease to the sorrowful remembering of that utter despair that had sounded to me plain in the last calling of mine own love, out of all the mystery of the night. And but to think upon this was to grow strong in the spirit, yet to have a fresh anxiousness that I did the more surely keep my life within me, and so come to that maid's salvation. Now, as you shall mind, I had spied the shine of certain fire-holes somewhat to the northward, and had thought to make thereabouts a place for my sleep, for, in truth, there was a bitterness of cold in all the air of night that did surround me, and I was warmed nigh to a slow happiness by thinking upon a fire to lie beside, and small wonder, as you shall say. And I made presently a strong walking unto that place where did glow in the night the shine of the fire-holes, as I did well judge them to be, and so was like to have come over swiftly upon my death, as you shall presently see. For, as I came anigh to the first, I perceived that the light came upward out of a great hollow among the moss bushes, and that the fire-hole burned somewhere in the deep of the hollow, so that I did but look upon the shine thereof. Yet very eager was I to come to that warmth, and I made more of haste than care, as I did hint, and so came very swift to the top of the hollow, yet was still hidden by the kindness of the moss bushes. And as I made to thrust forward out of the bushes, that I might look and go downward into the hollow, there rose up to me the sound of a very large voice, and deep and husky. And the voice was a dreadful voice that did speak, as that it said ordinary things, and in a fashion so monstrous as that it were, that a house did speak, and in verity this is a strange thing to say, yet shall it have the truth of my feelings and terror in that moment. And I drew back swiftly from discovering myself, and was then all feared to move, or to make to go more backward, lest that I should give knowledge that I was come anigh. And likewise did I shiver, lest that I was even then perceived. And so shall you have something of the utter fear that did shake me. And I abode there, very quiet, and moved not for a very great space, but did sweat and shake, for there was a monstrous horridness in the voice that did speak. And as I crouched there within the moss bushes, there came again the large voice, and it was answered by a second voice. And thereupon there arose, as it did seem, the speech of men that must have the bigness of elephants, and that did have no kindness in all their thoughts, but were utter monstrous. And the speech was slow, and it rose up out of the hollow, brutish and hoarse and mighty. And I would that I could make you to hear it, and that you could but borrow mine ears for a little moment, and forthwith be shaken with that utter horror and an afraidness, even as was I. Now, presently, there was a very long quiet, and I ceased at last a little from mine over fear, and later I did calm somewhat, so that I made to shift my position, which was grown very uneasy. And there was still no sound from the hollow. Wherefore, having a little boldness and much curiousness, and these despite my great fearfulness, I put forth mine hand, very cautious, and did move the moss bush a little from my face. And I went forward upon the earth, and did lie upon my belly, and was by this so close upon the edge of that place, that I was able to look downwards. And you shall know that I peered down into that great hollow, and did see a very strange and horrid sight, for, in truth, there was a large fire-hole in the centre of that place, and all about the sides there were great holes into the slopes of the hollow, and there were great men laid in the holes, so that I might see a great head that did show out to my sight here, from one of those holes, and would seem to be that of a monstrous man heavy with sleep. And there I would see but the buttocks of another, as that he did curl himself inward to his brutish slumbering. And so was it all about, and to my memory there were maybe a score of these holes, yet had I not time to the counting, as you shall see. For, after that, I had made but a glance, as it were, at these sleeping and utter monstrous men, I perceived that there sat beyond the fire-hole 3 great men, and they were each greater than elephants, and covered a large part with a stiff and horrid hair. That did be of a reddish seeming, and there were upon them great segs and warts, as that their skin had been hides that had never known covering. And there was between them the body of a mighty hound, so big as an horse, that they did skin. And I judged that this beast was one of those fearsome brutes which we did call the night hounds. Yet, as I should set down, they did nothing in that time in which I looked at them, but did sit each with a sharp and monstrous bloody stone in his fist, and did look to the ground, as that they heeded not the earth or the food that they did prepare, but did listen to some outward sound. And you shall know that this brought to me a very swift and sudden terror, for I perceive now the why of their long silence. For, in verity, they had an unease upon them, being subtly aware that one was anigh, even as are the brute beasts in this manner and kind, as all do know, and I made to draw back and win unto safety, if indeed this thing were to be done. And as I moved me, it may be that I shook a little earth into the hollow, for there was, indeed, a little sifting of dry dust below me, as I did wot, being very keen to hear, by reason of my fright. And immediately did those 3 monstrous men look upward, and did seem to me to stare into mine eyes, as I did lie there, hid amid the moss bushes. And I was so put in fear that I did clumsily, and sent another sifting of dust downward, as I did strive to go backward swift and quiet from the edge. And all the time I did look through the bushes very fixedly into the eyes of the giants, and lo, Their eyes did shine red and green, like to the eyes of animals. And there rose up a roar from them that did nigh slay my soul with the horridness of the noise. And at that roaring, all the giants that did lie in the holes did awake, and began to come outward into the hollow. Now I was surely lost and given over to destruction, for they had possessed me immediately. But that in that moment, as I went backward, the earth gave behind me, and I fell into a hole among the moss bushes to my back, and I made first to come out very hurried, and all choked with a dust of sand and ash. But in a moment I was sane to know that I had come to a sudden hiding place, and I lay very still, and strove neither to cough nor to breathe. And well for me, I came to so close a hiding, for they were all about me, the sounds of monstrous footsteps running that seemed to shake the ground, though maybe this to be an imagining bred of my fear. And shoutings of great voices there were, and the thudding of huge feet all about, and the noises of the bushes rustling. But presently the search drew away to the southward, and I perceived that there had surely fought for me some power of good fortune. And I came up out of the hole, very cautious and shaken, and a moment weak with the beating of my heart, yet with a lovely thankfulness for my salvation. And I gat me about, and went swift through the moss bushes to the north and west for 3 hours, and ceased not to run upon my hands and knees. And by that time was I come a great way, and did have a surety in my heart of present safety. And I ceased to run, and lay quiet, for, in truth, I did near swoon away with the hardness of my travel. And indeed, as you shall know, I had slept not for 27 hours, and had scarce ceased to labour in all that time. Moreover, I had eat not, neither drunk, for 9 hours, and so shall you conceive that I was truly aweary. And, presently, I did slumber there as I lay, and all abroad to any monstrous thing that should come along. Yet did I wake unharmed, and found by my dial there had gone by a full 10 hours, the while that I did lie there, and sleep unwotting. And I was sore perished with the cold of the night, for I had not the warmth of my cloak about me, and my belly was very empty. And I stood me up, and did peer about for any dread matter, but all seemed proper, and I began to stamp my feet against the earth, as that I would drive it from me, and this I do say as a whimsy, and I swung mine arms, as often you shall do in the cold days, and so I was presently something warmed. And I dismantled my cloak, and wrapped it about me, and did feel that the discos was safe to my hip. Then did I sit me down, and did glow a little with relish, in that I should now eat 4 of the tablets, for, indeed, these were my proper due, by reason of my shiftless fasting ere I came so wotless to my slumbering. And the memory of that eating doth live with me now, so that I could near to smile, for the eagerness of mine inwards was proper and human, yet were even 4 tablets. But a little matter to so great an emptiness, and I drank a double portion of the water, that I might make less the void. And this thing was seemly, for indeed there were 2 portions due unto me. And when I had eat and drunk, I did fold the cloak once more to shape across my shoulder, as I did carry it, and afterwards I took the discus into my hand, and went forward again to the north and west. Yet, as you shall know, I did pause a little in the beginning, and peer to every side for any close danger, and then did look more abroad of that place, but could nowhere see any matter to have me to immediate fear. And afterwards I looked a little while at the monstrous humped back of the watcher of the northwest, and it did grow to me how steadfast that thing did look toward the mighty pyramid, and this set me to new hatred and horror of the monster, as you shall conceive and believe. And presently I looked beyond the watcher unto the vast mountain of the great redoubt, and I was still seeming close upon it, yet, in truth, gone a long and weariful distance. But this you shall understand was by the greatness and utter height and bulk of that shining mountain of life. And strange and wonderful it was to me to think that even in that one moment it might be that the dear master Monstruacan did look upon my face through the great spyglass, and I should not seem utter far to him by reason of the power of the big glass. But to me, as I did look upward through the night unto that far and utmost light in the upper blackness of the everlasting gloom, it did seem doubly to me that I was afar off and lost forever from mine home. And this thinking did breed in me such a great and lonesome feeling, and a weakness of the heart and spirit, that forthwith I took my courage close unto me, and did turn away quickly, and went onward to the north and west, as I have told. Now I walked for 12 hours, and in that time did eat and drink twice, and made onward again very steadfast, and happy that all did go so quiet with me, so that it was as if I had at last come to a part of the land that was given over to quietness and lacking of monsters. Yet, in truth was, I come to a worse place than any, maybe, for as I went forward, striding very strong and making a good speed, I did hear presently a little noise upward in the night, and some ways unto my left, that had seeming as that it were a strange low sound that did come down to me out of an hidden doorway above, for, indeed, though the sound did come from very nigh, as it did seem no more than a score feet above my head, yet was it a noise that did come out of a great and mighty distance, and out of a foreign place. And I did know the sound, though never, as you may suppose, could I have heard it in all my life. Yet had I read in one of the records, and again in a second and a third, how that certain of all they that had adventured from the pyramid into the nightland to seek for knowledge, had chanced to hear a queer and improper noise above them in the night, and the noise had been strange, and did come from but a little way upward in the darkness, yet was also from a great and monstrous distance, and did seem to moan and hum quietly, and to have a different sounding from all noises of earth. And in the records it was set forth that these were those same doorways in the night, which were told of in an ancient and half-doubted tale of the world, that was much in favour of the children of the pyramid, and not disdained by certain of our wiser men, and had been thus through all the latter ages. And I did seem to know the sound upon the moment, for my heart grew swift to understand, and it was a very dread uncomfortable sound, and you shall know how it did seem, if you will conceive of a strange noise that doth happen far away in the country, and the same noise to seem to come to you through an open door near by. And this is but a poor way to put it, yet how shall I make the thing more known to you, so that I must even trust unto your wit and true sympathy that you shall conceive of the fullness of my meaning. Now, in all the histories of those that had adventured into the nightland, there were but 3 sure records that did concern this sound, and each did tell of a great horror. And of them that did hear the sound, there had died the most part, out in the nightland. And the records did make always that they had come upon destruction, and not simply unto death, but were destroyed by a strange and invisible evil power from the night. And of those that came alive unto the pyramid, they had all one strange tale to tell, how that there were secret and horrid doorways in the night. Yet how this thing could be plain to them, who may know truly, save it be that the eyes of their spirits did behold that which was hid to the eyes of the flesh. And there was afterwards writ a proper and careful treatise, and did set out that there did be ruptures of the ether, the which did constitute doorways, as those more fanciful ones did name them, and through these shatterings, which might be likened unto openings, there being no better word to their naming, there did come into this particular condition of life those monstrous forces of evil that did dominate the night, and which many did hold surely to have been given this improper entrance through the foolish and unwise wisdom of those olden men of learning, that did meddle over far with matters that did reach in the end beyond their understanding. And this thing have I told before, and it doth seem proper unto my belief, for it is always thus, and I have that same taint within me, as must all that have the zest of life. Now, by this that I have set down swiftly, to make a little clear, the sure horridness of this sound, you shall know, even with me, the great horror that did come immediately upon my spirit. And I did know that my search was surely like to have an end in that moment, and I bared mine arm, for my teeth, where the capsule did lie below the skin, and so was ready to an instant death if that destruction did come upon me. And in the same moment I did fall silent, inward among the moss bushes, and did begin to creep very quiet toward the right, for, as you will mind, I had heard the sound over beyond my left, and all that time, as I did creep, there was a great sickness upon me, and it did seem that my mouth had weakened unto water, so that I could scarce hold my teeth tightly from unseemly clitterings. And I crept always very silent, and did often stare quick and painful over my shoulder, upwards, and this way and that, but did never see anything, neither could I hear now the sound. And I went this wise for a great hour, and was like to faint through the effort of my care and the soreness of my going. But upon the end of that long while I grew something easier in the spirit, and did perceive that I was saved from the destruction that I had come so dreadful anigh. And this thing, it may be, was because that I did chance to hear it, whilst yet it was beyond, and before I did come right unto it, to pass below. Yet may I be wrong in this thought, and do but make a guessing. But, as I shall here explain, after that time I kept mine ears newly keen unto hearing, and did chide my spirit, for that it had not taken account of that sound a great while earlier. Yet, as I did presently conceive, the spirit had no power to hear that thing, which was very strange, but truly so. Now, because that I went with a very wary hearing, I heard the sound once a far way off before me, and I hid upon the moment, and went backward, and after a while did judge myself to have come unto safety, and so it was, in verity, for I heard no more that time. And so did I come presently unto the 18th hour, and did eat and drink, and made me a place of slumber in a little hollow of a rock that stood upward out of the moss bushes. And I slept for 6 hours, and afterwards waked, and was come to no harm. And after I had eat and drunk again, I did look outward over the nightland, and with particularness to that part that I did travel in, as it might be called, the yesterday. And I did observe it to be a very bleak and desolate country, and not given over to fire or other warmth, nor to sulphur vapours, but to be very quiet, and with but a little light in all its breadth. And I could conceive that it was no place for anything of life to desire, but rather to avoid, and that country did seem to be yet all about me, for I was by no means come clear from it at that time, though northward there was a glimmer as of fire-holes, and beyond those the strange shining of the plain of blue fire. And after that I had thought a while. I did believe that I should meet no monster of natural life in all that country of desolation, until I did draw nigh once more unto fire. And I conceived that this sound from out of the invisible doorways might yet trouble me, But whether the quietness of that part was because all of natural life did fear the sound, or because that there was neither fire nor warmth, I do not say, having no knowing in this matter, but may yet believe that it was to be laid to both causes, and this doth seem of common reason, as you shall agree. And when I had looked a while unto the mighty pyramid, which was now truly a great way off, for I had walked so many weary hours, I turned me once more to my journeying. And here let me observe that I had gone very far, yet not so distant as might be thought, for oft I did go less than 1 mile in an hour, or maybe 2 hours, having to be of great caution, and oft to hide, and to go upon my belly, or to crawl, all as might be. And further, as you may have perceived, I made not a straightforwardness, but did strike this way and that way, being very intent to escape the monsters and evil forces that were all about. Now, because that I believed that I travelled in a place where was surely to be discovered those strange doorways within the night, I made an especial care of my going, and did stop oft that I might listen and watch, and keep a very strict ward in all the night about me. Yet, as you shall see, this served not to prevent me from going forward into the fearfulness of that which did haunt all the void, for, sudden, as I went carefully, I heard a faint humming noise come downward from the night a little unto my rear, and the humming noise did grow more plain, as that a door were opened slowly above, and did let out that sound ever more loud. And surely, after I did hear that, I could not doubt that a door were opened upward there, for the noise did grow in such wise as you shall hear a distant sound come through when a door truly is oped, for if the noise had been made just in that place, it had seemed to come from there, but this sound, though it did come through there, was as that it did come outward from some far lost and foreign eternity. And this I do struggle always to make plain, and you shall not blame me that I think overmuch upon it, for, in truth, there was an horror so wondrous and drear about it that I can forget not, but do strive always that others should know with me that peculiar woe and terror that did haunt the night. Now, as you will see, I had in truth gone past the place where the doorway in the night did open, yet had come to no harm, but rather it did seem that it opened by chance, unwotting that I was anigh. Or it may be that my quiet passing did disturb an evil power, so that it did even come to listen, or to make search. And all this doth pass through my brain, as I do write, and it doth seem to me that my thoughts are but the thoughts of a little child before so great a mystery, and that I touch not even the edge and fringe of the truth with my thinkings, and so do cease upon them, and will but go forward so plain as I may with my telling. Now, as you may truly believe, when I heard that sound, and did understand that I had, in verity, come past beneath that place, I did surely sicken to an utter weakness of body and heart, though it was but for a moment, and then was I swift hid within the close shelter of the low and thick moss bushes, and I shook in all my being, and crept, shaking, upon my hands and knees, and did near totter to my face thrice, so weak gone was I in that moment of terror, and I did have a wickedness of forgetting in that time, for I bared not mine arm, to have the capsule to a readiness for my death, if that did need to be, and this was an abominable foolishness. And I do shake now when I think upon it, for death is but a little matter by the side of destruction, though, in truth, dreadful enough for all. Yet, as it did chance, no harm came to me, and I gate away, as that some wondrous power did cast a viewless cloak about me, that I might be utter hid. And oft have I wondered whether this was truly so, but have no knowing. And, presently, I ceased from fleeing, and had some calmness, and did eat and drink, and so came to the comfort of a firm spirit, the which had been sore troubled, above all understanded causes, by that horrid sounding upward in the night. And after that I had eat and drunk, I did rest a little, but afterward went onward to the northward, going towards that place where the fire hose did glimmer, the same being by this time no great way off. Then, as I did come anigh, I thought to hear once again the sound in the night, and I stopped very swift, and hid into the moss bushes, and did listen, but did hear naught, and so was hopeful that fancy did play upon me. Yet, because of this matter, I went upon my hands and knees for a good way, and so came at last nigh unto the shine of one of those fire holes, the which I did see for so long. Now, as you shall suppose, I went very cautious through the bushes unto that red shining fire, being careful, both that I did attract not any evil force that might listen in the night, and because that there might be some monster nigh to the fire hole. But presently, when I was come so that I could peer through the bushes, I did see a little fire hole set in a small hollow, and there did no thing seem to lurk anigh. And the sight of that warmth did cheer me, for it was long since I did have the comfort of such a matter. And when I had lain hid a while, that I might watch all about, I saw the place to be safe and quiet, and I went out from the moss bushes, and sat down a space from the fire, which did fill the pit in which it did lift and bubble. And the noise that it sent out was strange and slow, and it did seem to gruntle gently unto itself in that lonesome hollow, as that it had made a long and quiet grumbling there through eternity. And oft was it still, and made no sound, and again would give an odd bubbling in the quietness, and send off, as it did seem, a little smoke of sulphur, and afterward fall once more upon a quiet. And so I did sit there very hushed and restful, and the loneliness did lie all about me, and the red shine of the fire hole did glow soft in the hollow, and I was glad to be quiet, for my heart was weary. And there was to my back a little rock that did jut upward so high as a man, and the rock was warm and pleasant to lean upon, and moreover did seem to guard me from behind. And there I ate and drunk, and kept very still, and so was presently rested. And this I did need, as you have perceived, for I was gone, sudden weary of the heart, as I did say, and this might be because that I did never cease to have destruction over me to companion my way. Though, as you will mind, I had been no more than 12 hours afoot since my last sleeping, yet I doubt not you do understand. And presently my heart grew strong again within me, and I had a warmth in my spirit, and I got up from the earth, and stretched out mine arms, and I saw that my gear was safe upon me, and afterward did grip the discos, as it were newly. Then I went away from the fire hole, and climbed the far slope of the hollow, and went northward. And there were before me many of the fire holes, for I did perceive them to shine in the night for a great way, as it did seem that they were a path of red shinings that led me onward to the northwest of the light of the plain of blue fire. Now, I had a believing that I had come out of the country. Where did lurk those horrid doorways in the night? And I went not with so utter a weight upon my heart, and did feel that naught should come now upon the back of my neck, which had been an odd and troublesome fancy whilst that I did creep through that country of gloom. Yet, as you shall know, I went with no foolish confidence, but with a great caution, and mine hearing keen to hark, and a care to my steps, and did ever watch around me as I journeyed. And because that I went forward in this proper and sedate manner, I had great cause for a thankful heart, as you may perceive, for I had come after a long way, to another of those hollows where did burn one of the fire holes. And I made a pause upon the edge of the hollow in which it did lie, and looked downward, keeping guarded within the moss bushes, where they grew anigh to the top thereof. But there was no living thing there to be seen, and I went downward, so that I should warm my body at the fire. And lo! As I stood upon this side of the fire-hole and turned myself about, I looked presently more keenly to the other side, for the yellowness of the earth did seem a little strange in one place. But I could see with no plainness, because that there arose a glare from the fire against mine eyes, and I went round, that I should look the better, yet with no fear or thought of evil in my heart. And truly, when I was come upon that far side of the fire-hole, lo! there was spread out in the yellow sand of that place a curious thing, and I went more nigh, and stooped to look upon it, and behold, it moved. And the sand all about did move for a great space, so that I gave back very swift, and swung upward with the discus. And, strangely, I heard the sand to stir at my back, and I looked round very quick, and the sand rose upward in parts and sifted back, and there came to my sight odd things that did move and curl about. And immediately, before I knew which way to go, I knew that the sand did shift under my feet, and did work and heave, so that I was tottered and was shaken also in the heart. For I knew not what to think in that instant. Then did I perceive that I was all surrounded, and I ran swift upon the heaving sand, unto the edge of the fire-hole, and I turned there, and looked quickly, for I did not know what this new terror should be. And I saw that a yellow thing did hump upward from out of the sand, as it had been a low hillock that did live, and the sand shed downward from it, and it did gather to itself strange and horrid arms from the sand all about it. And it stretched two of the arms unto me, but I smote with the discus, and I smote thrice, and afterward they did wriggle upon the sand. But this was not the end, as I did hope, for the yellow thing arose and ran at me, as it might be that you should see a spider run. And I did leap backward, this way and that, but the monster had a great swiftness, so that I did seem surely lost. Then made I a strong and instant resolve, for I perceived that I had no hope to slay this thing, save that I should come at it in the body. And I put everything to the chance, and made not to escape any more, but ran straight in among the legs. And there were great hairs like to spines upon the legs, and these had pricked me to the death, but that the armour saved me. Now, I had done this thing with a wondrous quickness, so that I was under the mighty arching of the legs before the yellow thing did wot of my intent. And the body was bristled with the great hairs, and poison did seem to come from them, and to ooze from them strangely in great and shining drops. And the monster heaved itself up to one side, that it might bring certain of the legs inward to grasp me. Yet in that moment did I smite utter fierce with the discus thrusting. And the discus did spin, and hum, and roar, and sent out a wondrous blaze of flame, as that it had been a devouring death. And it sundered the body of the yellow thing, and did seem as that it screamed to rage amid the entrails thereof. So wondrous was the fury and energy of that trusted weapon. And I was covered with the muck of the thing, and the claws upon the legs seized me, so that the grey armour did bend and crack to the might thereof, and I grew sick unto death with the pain within, but smote with the shining discus, using my left hand weakly, for my right was gripped dreadful fast to my body. And lo! I was sudden free, and a great blow did knock me far across the hollow, so that I was like to have fallen into the fire-hole, but fell instead upon the edge, and came backward unto safety. And I turned me about, and the yellow thing did throw the sand all ways, as it did die, but had lost power to come upon me. And for my part, I lay weak upon the earth, and was no more able to fight, nor could I do more than breathe for a great while, but yet came presently to health, and made to examine my hurts. Then I saw there was no great wound anywhere upon me, but only an utter bruising, and I found upon my right leg that there was a sharp and hairy claw clipped about it. But the armour had saved me from harm of the horrid thing, so that I did but kick it free with my left foot, and thence into the fire-hole. Now, by this time, that monstrous creature was dead, but I held off from it, and went upon the other side of the fire, for I was yet surely in horror of it. And I sat for a time, and did think upon all matters that did concern me, and I saw that I should have not comfort of heart until I was washed clean from the taint of the monster. And I gat me up wearily to go forth into the night again, that I should make a search for a hot spring, of which I had come past many, and I had oft found them to be nigh unto the fire-holes, so that I was trustful that I should see one ere long. And lo, there was a little hollow just beyond, and scarce 100 paces off, and in the hollow there did shine 3 small fire-holes, and there was a steaming puddle, as did seem, beyond the third of the holes. Now, before I had ventured downward into this place, I went all about the topmost edge, and made a search of the moss bushes about, but found naught that should scare me. And afterward I went all across the hollow, but did find no monstrous thing hid anywheres. Yet there was that in the place that discouraged me, and did keep me from stripping mine armour, so that I should bathe in the hot puddle. For I stepped upon a small serpent, and the same did lap about my leg, but could do me no hurt, for the armour, which was a very blessed protection. And I freed myself from it with the handle of the discos. And because that I could not go naked to my cleansing, I tried first the hotness of the water, which was not over great, and afterward did take off the scrip, and the pouch, and the cloak, and laid them with the discos upon the edge of the warm puddle. Then I stepped into the water, and was immediately gone downward a great way, for truly it was no puddle as I had supposed, but a deep well, as you might call it, of hot and sulphury water. And this doth show how a man may act foolishly, even when he doth believe that he hath a great caution. And surely it is borne in upon me afresh that none should trust over freely unto unproven matters, the which shall you heartily agree with, but yet do as foolishly, according to your lights and characters, and so shall you laugh not over hardly upon me. Now I had gone over the head, and surely I do not know what deepness was there. Yet, as you shall think, I stayed not to consider upon this matter, but made to climb out, and much shaken with my splutterings and the smartings of mine eyes, for, truly, the water was strong with sulphur matters. Yet very cleansing was it, as I did presently see, for there was no more any taint or horridness upon mine armour, or the flesh of my face or hands. And I took the discos, and washed it clean also, and then the cloak, and afterward the scrip, and the pouch, and the bands of the same. And after I had done this, I was minded to dry myself by the little fire-holes, but when I was come there, lo, maybe a score, small serpents were about those places, and I was strongly pleased that I should keep away. Yet that I must warm and dry me in that desolate and bitter nightland, you shall agree. And to this end I put the scrip and the pouch upon me, and afterwards took the discos readily into my hand, and ran quietly unto the hollow where I did fight with the yellow thing, and the cloak I bore in my left hand. Now, when I was gate there, I was truly glad to think that there were no serpents in that place, and because that I had slain the monster of the place, how should it be that any harm might come unto me? For truly, was it not like that a creature of such might should keep all that hollow unto itself, and slay any that did come therein, and thereby preserve that place from all other horror? though, surely, until it did die and cease to be, there had been no call for any greater abomination. Now, all this did go through my brain, as I did sit to dry mine armour and my body and my gear, upon that side of the fire-hole which was away from the slain monster. And I made presently to think that this would be a sure and proper refuge wherein to sleep, for, truly, it must have gotten a place where none other creature should be like to come to work me harm. And it must be that you do all see with me in this matter, and commend me that I thought with properness. And so did I, resolve that I put my disgust within my pocket, as we do say, and stay safe and quiet within that hollow. And this thing I did surely, and did eat and drink, and presently I went over to the dead monster, and made very sure that it was truly slain, which indeed it was. And after that I had seen to this matter, I returned unto the fire-hole, and made a comfortable place in the sand for my rest, for I was well dry by this. And I wrapped the cloak about me, and took the discourse to my breast for a sure companion, as it had truly proved in my need. And I could think almost that it did nestle unto me, as that it knew and loved me. But this thing can be no more than a fancy, and I do but set it down as such, and that it doth show my feeling and mind at that time. Then, ere I did compose myself to slumber, I looked about me, upward to the edges of the hollow, and I perceived that I was lost to the sight of the mighty pyramid, for I was come so far off that it looked not down from so wondrous a height as you shall perceive, and moreover the hollow was something deep. And afterward, as I lay my head back upon the scrip and the pouch, which were to me my pillow, I went to think a little upon Nani, as alway I did in my constant journeying. Yet presently I strove sometimes that I put her from my mind, that I should sleep, for a bitter sorrow and anxiousness was oft upon me when that I did think upon her. And this you may know, for truly I knew not what terror was come to her, afar in the silence of the night. And did I think overmuch, I should feel that I could have no calmness needful to sleep, but to need to walk for ever until I died, which could not be long, and so should I make a foolishness of mine anxious journeying to do her true service and to save her from destruction, if such did truly threaten. And I was soon gone over to sleep, and waked not for 7 hours, being much wearied by the fight and the soreness of my body, the which did put me into a great pain as I did rise upward from my slumber. But this was presently something less, and I eat 2 of the tablets, and drank some of the water, and afterward did put my gear upon me, and went forward into the night, having the discourse in my hand. And my heart was glad that I had come safe through the time of my sleep. Now I walked 6 hours, and did stop a little to eat and drink, and went on again. And it was in this second third of the day that I saw afar to my right 2 strange and wondrous men, and they did shine, as they had been made of a pale mist. And they came anigh, going very swift, and did seem as that they were maybe 40 feet high, yet having no thickness, and I hid downward into the moss bushes. And they passed me, so quiet as a cloud of this day might go, and did appear to be, if I did guess, but 100 fathoms off, yet was this no sure thing, for their position had no more surety than shall a rainbow have in this age. And so they were gone onward into the night, and did seem to come out of the north, and they did appear not to wot of me, and whether they were harmful I know not, for they harmed not me. And I lay there in the moss bushes until they were well gone away, and I had belief that they must be those same mist-men that were told of in certain of the olden records, but were never seen anigh to the pyramid, though I had thought odd times to see men as of mist through the great spyglass when I was within the tower of observation, but they were always a mighty way off, and some would say it was but a bright vapour that did move, yet would others be in doubt, and so is it ever in such matters. And here let me take chance to say how that it is a hard thing to speak of such happenings to men of this age, and to make the truth proper unto them, and because of this, oft am I tempted to say no word upon many things that I did see, yet must I tell my tale, or suffer from the weight of it within me. And so shall you hark to me, and give me your sympathy and human understanding. And concerning these mist men, I have wondered oft whether they were the visible shape of some of those many forces that were abroad in the nightland, for they did truly seem to me as that a thing of strange life were half shown to my human eyes, yet I do not know, and am but telling of my natural thoughts and ponderings. Now, as I did say, those mist men were never seen nigh unto the pyramid, and were, as I did hint, always so far off that they were half given over to the fables of the olden days, in the beliefs of the peoples of the mighty redoubt, and set about with an halo of unrealness, for none within the great pyramid had ever beheld them with surety. And because that now I saw them anigh to me, it was borne in afresh upon my spirit how greatly I had wandered away, and how that I stood afar in the lonesomeness of that land of night, as it had been that a man of this age did wander amid the stars, and perceive a great comet to go by him very close. For then he should know in his heart how that he was far off in the void. And this I do say to you, that you may know somewhat of the emotions of my heart in that moment. Yet presently I shook free of my melancholy and lonesomeness, and rose up out of the moss bushes, and went onward. And as ever, I thought much upon the maid that I did search for, yet strove to think quietly concerning her state, else should I have turned to running, and wrecked my body before that I had gone any great way. And that day I passed 7 large fire-holes, and 2 that were small, and always I came softly unto them, for there were oft living things about the warmth. And at the 6th fire-hole I did see that which I did think to be a great man, that did sit to the fire, with monstrous knees drawn upward unto his chin, and the nose was great and bent downward, and the eyes very large, and did shine with the light from the fire-hole, and moved, watching, always this way and that, so that the white parts did show, now this side, and now that. But it was not properly a man. And I went away very quiet from that place, and looked oft backward until that I was sure of safety, for it was a very horrid monster, and had that place to be for a lair, as I did judge from the smell thereof. And when the 18th hour was come, I looked about for a safe place to my sleep, and I kept away now from the fire-holes, for I did always find the more life there. Yet when I came to my rest, I was lacking of warmth, by reason of this care, and could scarce sleep at all, because that I was so cold. Yet managed something of slumber after a while, but woke very stiff, and was glad to beat my hands and bestir myself that I should come to some warmth of life. And after that I had eat and drunk, I put my gear upon me, and took the discourse in my hand, and went forward again upon my journey. And here I should tell that I was come soon unto the northwest border of the plain of blue fire. And presently I was but a little way off from it, and did go direct to the north, so that the plain was always upon my right. Now this plain was a strange and fearsome place, as you shall see, for it was as that a blue void did rise upward from the earth in all the country of that plain. For surely the plain did not lumber with flame, but was hid with a strange and in-burning light, as of a shining atmosphere of a cold blue colour. and it did throw no sure light upon the night land, as had seemed proper, but was a very dreadful cold shining, as of a luminous and blue void. And the moss bushes grew nigh to the edge of the plain, and did show to me black and strange against that horrid gloom of light. And you shall know that I could not see into the plain, for it was as that the cold blue light was a void that swallowed all within it, and gave no power to the eye that aught should be perceived. And it stood between me and the mighty pyramid, and I could now wise see across. And I know not whether I do make all this matter clear unto you, for surely it is no easy task. And presently I had gone very quiet upon my hands and knees through the moss bushes, and I came near upon the edge of the plain, and hid there in a clump of the moss bush, and peered forth, and harked. And I heard constant voices that did call to one another across the plain, as it were that strange peoples of spirits did wander within that blue shining, and did make a calling one to the other, and were all hid and held apart. And surely I could see naught, and did judge, as I have writ, that they likewise went blindly. And truly is this a strange matter to set out, and easy to think on with doubt. Yet, as I did see, so have I told, for, in verity, there were surely hidden peoples of spirits scattered and lost afar upon that improper plain. And you shall judge that I kept safe hid, for whether this might have any natural explaining, or whether it was a matter that did go utter beyond knowledge of man, I did not know. For surely in that strange land it did like to be an horrid danger in any case, and whether of some monstrous creatures, or of the evil forces of the land, I did wisely to be away. And for 2 days I did make a safe coasting of the plain of blue fire, and did keep well off, maybe 2 great miles, among the moss bushes, and I made a very good speed through the darkness. And at the 18th hour of each journey, I made a place for my slumber, and the first I did manage under a thick bush, but the second was high upon the ledge of a rock that grew upward in the night amid the bushes. And, save that I was bitter cold, there did no harm come to me. And in all that time of journeying I had no sight of the mighty pyramid, for the blind shining of the plain of blue fire was ever between. Now there had been certain little matters in my journey beside the plain of blue fire, which I have not set down, for they were of no account, and do but repeat much that I have told before. And indeed there was naught in that part of my journey, save that I did pass 19 great fire holes and 4 small, and did observe no life beside any, save about one of the great holes that there was no hollow around, and here I did happen to see some strange and ugly creatures so big as my head, that did have a look of the scorpion of this age, but proportioned more squat and thick. Yet, though they were naught to remark upon in that land, they had been but woeful bedmates to any man, as you may think. And you shall know how it gave a rest to my spirit, that I did go so long with no trouble of the monsters of the night, or the evil forces thereof. And I grew bolder to my journeying, and made ever a greater speed of going, and it was like that I took presently a less heed for my safety, which was a wrong and foolish state. Yet there came no harm unto me in all that part of my travel. Then it was in the 16th hour of the 3rd day of my journey beside the plain, that I did come out beyond the end of it, and had fresh sight of the mighty pyramid, afar in the night upon my right. And I stopped there in a bare place among the moss bushes, and did in a weak moment hold up the discourse, so that I make a salute unto the pyramid. Mine home, for truly was I so utter glad to behold it once more. And in a little while was I aware that there was a disturbance of the ether of the world all about me, so that it did seem that there had been one at the great spyglass to watch for my coming into their sight from behind the shining of the plain of blue. Fire! And it was like that news had gone downward through the cities of the great redoubt, so that they did print the word of it in the hour slips, and by this there would be many great millions thinking upon me, and a rushing unto the embrasures that they might spy out at me. Yet I doubt that any glass might perceive me surely at so great a space, save the power of the great spyglass in the tower of observation, but the emotion of the millions to reach to me. And you shall know that it did seem homely and sweet unto me to hear all about me, the shaking of the ether of the world, and to beware that so many did think humanly upon me, and had prayers unto my safety. And it was a strange thing to stand so utter far off in the night, and to look back to that everlasting hill of light that was grown something small by the distance, and to have surety that I was looked upon through the great spyglass, maybe by the kindly eye of my dear friend, the master monstruous, and so keenly that he could, it might be, make almost to guess the look within mine eyes, as I did gaze backward unto that mine home. Yet, though this dear and homely sympathy was a sweet and companionable thing to my heart, it came swift to my thought that I was in a sore danger, if that they ceased not quickly to think so, wanly upon me. For surely was I not come over near unto that dreadful house of silence, and well might so much emotion of the millions tell unto the horrid power that dwelt within, how that I was even anigh. And so shall you see the mixed feelings that came upon me every way. Yet, as it did chance, the ether was quieted in a little, for it did need unity of the millions, being that they were untrained to their spiritual powers to stir the ether. And so was I, more easy of mind, and went forward again upon my way. Now, as it did chance, at the 18th hour, I was come to a place where I heard a noise of water, and I went to my left, that I might come upon it, and there boiled a hot fountain that went up out of the rock of that place. And the water rose upward in a column, and was, maybe, so thick as my body. And it fell unto the north, for the water came not up straightly, but did shoot out from the earth unto that way. And I saw the thing plain, for there were many fire holes all about, as you shall have wotted from my telling. And so was there a certain and constant light in that part of the land. And I followed the water that ran from the fountain, and tried it with mine hand, but found it to burn, and so did go further beside it, for presently it should be no hotter than I did need. And it went onward, winding among the moss bushes, and sent up a constant steam that hung about it, and the steam made a red cloud about the way that it did go, for the lights from the fire holes made a shining upon it, and so was it, a wondrous pretty sight. Now, presently, I tried the stream again, and found it to be nicely warm, and I sat upon a little rock, and took off my footgear, that I might bathe my feet, which were gone, something tender moreover. I did ache to have the sweetness of water about me, and I made that I should bathe my feet, and afterwards find a place among the moss bushes, and so eat, and drink, and have my slumber. Then, as I did sit there beside that warm stream with my feet dabbled therein, I heard sudden, afar off, the voice of a mighty night-hound baying in the night, and the sound came from the northwest of the plain of blue fire. And there was afterward a quiet, and you shall see me sitting there upon the rock by the side of that smoking river, and the steam all about me, and my feet within the lovely warmth of the water, and I very still and frozen with a sudden fear, for it did seem to me in an instant that the night-hound might surely be upon the track of my goings. And after that there had passed a little time, the while that I did listen very keen, lo! There burst out in the night, as it did seem scarce a mile off, the monstrous deep baying of the giant hound. And I knew surely that the brute did track me, and a sick and utter horror did fall upon me, so that I could scarce get my foot-gear upon me once more. Yet, in truth, I was not long to the matter, and was to my feet, and did hold the discourse ready, and very desperate I was to the heart, for it is ever a fearsome thing to be put in chase, and the worse 100 times when there is a sure knowledge that a deathly monster doth be the pursuer. Now, I did stand there but a moment, it did seem, to make an anxious considering how that I might best assure me some chance to live through this swift-coming danger. And then did I think upon the stream, to use it, and I leapt quick therein, and did run very strong down the middle part, which was nowhere so much as thigh deep, and oft not above mine ankles. And as I did run, there came again the bellow of that dire brute, following, and was now, as mine ears did say, scarce the half of a mile to my rear. And I did run, but the stronger, for the dread of the sound, and so, maybe, for a little minute. And after that time I stopped from mine heavy running, and went very wary, that I made no loud splashing, for by now the monster brute should be something anigh to that place where I did enter the stream. And I looked round, with a constant looking, but did see no surely visible thing, though my fear did shake me and hound from every shadow of the moss bushes about me. Then, in a moment, I did hear the great beast, for it bayed but a little way up the stream, as that it had overshot the place where the scent did end. And immediately I sank swiftly into the water, which was there so deep as my knee, and turned upon my belly. And the water surged over my shoulders, for I kept my head above. And so I did look eager and fearful through the steam into the shadows and the half-darkness, towards where I did think to see the night-hound. And in a moment I saw it coming, and it was a little vague, by reason of the smoke of the river, yet did seem black and monstrous in the gloom, and great as a mighty horse. And it went past me at a vast and lumbersome gallop, but I did not see it in that moment, for I dived my head down unto the rock of the river bottom, and held downward until that I was like to burst for sore longing of breath. Then I put upward my head, and took swift and deep breathings, and looked about me, very cautious and fearful, as you can know, and I heard the night-hound casting round among the moss bushes, and it did send up a wild and awesome baying, and I heard the bushes break and smash beneath it, as it did run to and hither. And afterward there was a quiet, yet I moved not, but stayed there, very low in the water, and did have a thankful heart that it was warm and easy to persist in, for I had surely died of a frozen heart, if that it had been cold. For by this time you do know, even with me, how bitter was the chill of the land. Now, I had been a while lain thus upon my belly, and heard no sound from the monstrous hound. Yet I ceased not to be full of an horrid unease concerning the great beast, for I did better to know what it did than to have no knowing. And, sudden, I heard the sound of it, running very swiftly and coming nigh, and it passed me, and did go up the stream. And there was surely a quick stupor upon me, for I ducked not my head under the water, but stayed very still, which, as it did chance, was maybe not such an utter foolishness, for my head did seem in that half-gloom to be, mayhap, no more than a little rock in the water, and I made no move to tell of life. Yet should the hound have smelled me, and that it failed in this matter, doth be a puzzle to me. And as the great night-hound passed me, it tore the earth and the bushes with the exceeding strength that it put forth to run, and clods of the earth and stones of bigness were cast this way and that by the feet of the hound, running. and so shall you have a little knowledge of the strength of that beast." And the hound ran on into the distance, and presently I heard it baying in the night. Then I rose and went onward down the worn stream, and made a strong walking, yet keeping alway to the water, and oft did stop a little that I should listen. And always I heard the night hound a great way off in the night, baying, and seeming that it did surely run to and fro, searching. Now I journeyed thus for 12 hours, and the baying of the hound making search did never cease. And I kept always to the water, as I did say, that I should leave no scent unto the hound. And by that 12 weary hours had gone, I found that I was come anigh unto the house of silence, and this put me in great trouble, as you may perceive, for surely had mine whole effort been to the end that I should avoid that house by a great way. Yet had the hound driven me thus anear. Now I saw that the small river did go onward, and did make a breach across the road, where the silent ones walk, and I determined in my heart that I should leave the water, which was now grown nigh to a bitter cold, in that it was so long upon the face of the land. Yet chiefly did I mind to leave the water, that I should come no more anigh unto that house of silence, for the water did go that way. And I stood a while, and did listen for the baying of the hound, but could hear it no more, and did have a surety within me that it was indeed gone from searching for me. Then I came out of the water, and went forward, stooping and creeping, among the moss bushes, going upward to the westward of north, so that I should go away so quickly as I might from the nearness of the house. Yet, lo! I was gone upon my hands and knees no more than 100 fathoms, when I did find the moss bushes to cease to the westward for a great way, and there to be a great bareness of rock, which, in truth, was much shown thereabout. And I dared not to go outward upon that naked land, for then I had not been hid by the moss bushes, but had stood plain there for all things of the night to behold, and moreover, though I could no wise have a sure knowledge concerning this matter, yet did I hope within me that I should make a sure hiding from the power of the house of silence, did I but go very low among the bushes. But indeed it was like enough that naught could give me hiding, yet should I lose no chance unto my safety. And because of this, I went backward among the bushes, and ceased to escape out unto the westward. And I found presently that the moss bushes made but a narrow growth in that path, and grew only for a while by the side of the great road, so that I was surely fain to keep nigh to the road, that I have the covering of the bushes. And in a while I found the road where the silent ones walk, to bend inward at the north of the house of silence, so that it came right horridly close unto the house. For here the hill on which the house did stand was very abrupt, and fell steeply unto the road. And so was that dreadful house stood up there above me in the silence, as that it did seem to brood there upon the land. And this side did seem truly as the other, and equal, lone, and dreadful. And the house was monstrous and huge, and full of quiet lights. And it was truly as that there had been no sound ever in that house through eternity. But yet was it as that the heart did think each moment to see quiet and shrouded figures within, and yet never were they seen. And this I do, but set down that I bring all home unto your hearts also, as that you crouched there with me in those low moss bushes, there beside the great road, and did look upward unto that monstrous house of everlasting silence, and did feel the utterness of silence to hang about it in the night, and to know in your spirits the quiet threat that lived silent there within. And so shall you have mind of me, hid there among the bushes, and sodden and cold, and yet, as you will perceive, so held in my spirit by an utter terror and loathing, and solemn wonder and awe of that mighty house of quietness loomed above me in the night, that I wotted not of the misery of my body, because that my spirit was put so greatly in dread and terror for the life of my being. And also you shall have before you how that I knew in all my body and soul that I stood anigh to that place where but a little while gone there had passed inward so dreadful to an everlasting silence and horrid mystery those poor youths. And after that you have minded you of this, you shall consider how that the memory of all my life held dread thoughts of the monstrousness of that house. And now was I anigh unto it, and it did seem to my soul that the very night about it held an anguish of quiet terror. And always my mind did come back to the sheer matter that I was so anigh. And this thing I do say unto you once and again, for truly, as you do see, it hath imprinted itself deep into my spirit. Yet shall I now cease from saying further in this manner, for surely you shall never know all that was in mine heart, and if I cease not, I do but be like to weary you. And so did I hide and creep, and oft pause to a time of shaking quiet, and afterward gather something of new courage, and go onward and peer upward at that monstrous house stood above me in the night. Yet, as it did come about, I came presently clear of that horrid place, for the road came round again unto the north, and I began that I made a better way through the moss bushes, but never that I grew to much speed, for I had oft to go about, that I should miss a naked part here, and another there, for truly there was an abundance and bareness of rock, so that the bushes grew not so thick as I could wish. And in the space of 5 hours was I clear of that house, and did have a greater ease about my heart, but yet was not free to come to food nor to slumber, the both of which I did sorely need. For I had slept neither eat for a weariful time, as you do know. But first I must go further off from the house, and afterwards come to some firehole, that I should dry myself and get warmth again into my body, which was bitter cold. And now that I had come unto the northward of the house of silence, there came to me a great wonder, which bred in me a mighty hope and gladness. For as I did go among the bushes, there broke sudden all around me in the ether the low and solemn beat of the master word, and the throb of the word was utter weak, so that one moment I did say unto myself that I heard, and in a moment that I did not, yet had I no proper doubt in my heart. And I reasoned with myself, and with a great shaking of excitement and expectation upon me, that the master word came not from the great pyramid, which should have power to send it as a great force across the everlasting night, whilst this that throbbed about me was faint and scarce to be known even unto the keenness of the night hearing, which was mine. And immediately, as I crouched low there, and thrilled with the hope that was bred in me, lo! There seemed to come the far faint voice of Nani, calling with a little voice within my spirit, and I thought the cry to have an utterness of supplication within it, so that I grew desperate to up and go to running, yet did curb such foolishness, and stayed very hushed to listen. But I heard no more, yet was shaken continually with the joy and hope which this calling did breed in me. For truly did it seem now that I was right, that I did determine to go unto the north, for sure was I now that the lesser redoubt lay that way in the night, and it did seem plain unto me that the house of silence had put a barrier between, and had power to withhold so weak a calling. And now had I come beyond the barrier, and I did perceive in my heart how that Nani had called off, maybe in the sadness of despair, yet had the weak crying of her brain elements been held from me by the horrid power of the house. And surely, as I did think, it was well named, for it did make a silence. And so shall you stay with me in your hearts, and take to ourselves something of the new gladness that held all my being. For it did seem truly that my bitter task and adventuring should not in the end be offered to uselessness, and that I did truly draw unto that far place in the everlasting night where mine own maid did cry for me, that I should succour her. And ever as I went, did I hark, but there was no more, the low beating of the master word in the night, not at that time. And presently I spied outward to the west, as it did seem a good mile off in the night, the shining of a fire-hole, and I began to plan that I should come unto that place, and have warmth and dryness, and food and slumber. And, in verity, so set was I to the need of these matters, that if there did be a monstrous thing nigh to the fire, as was so oft the case, then would I give battle unto it, for neither my joy nor my labours did serve to put warmth into my body, and I must surely come anigh to fire, or die. Then, as I kneeled upward among the moss bushes, and made to lay a true course unto the fire-hole, I perceived that there came a being along the road unto my right, and I went low into the bushes, and moved not, for truly I had seen that there drew nigh one of the silent ones. And I made a little place that should let me to see, and I spied out with an utter caution, and lo! The being came on very quiet and with no hurry, and in a time it went by me on the road, and did take no heed to me. Yet did I feel that it had knowledge that I stooped there among the moss bushes, and it made no sound as it went, and was a dreadful thing, yet it did seem unto my heart as that it had no trouble of wanton malice to work needless destruction to any. And this I crave strangely that you to understand, for it was so to me that I had a quiet and great respect for that thing, and did feel no hatred, yet was very dreadly in fear of it. And it was huge in size, and was shrouded unto its feet, and seemed maybe 10 feet high. Yet presently it was gone onward down the road, and I was no more troubled by it. Then did I make no waste of time, but set off unto the fire-hole, and kept so much to shelter as I might, but was oft made to run over baked places, ere that I should come to more of the bushes. And I came presently nigh unto the fire-hole, and made a pause, and crept unto it with a great care. And I found it to be in the bottom of a deep hollow of the rock of that part, and the rock was clear looking of all living matters, the which did make me to be glad. And I went round about the top of the hollow, carrying the discourse very handily, but there was nowhere any living thing, and I feared not to go downward into the deep hollow, and so unto the fire-hole, which lay in the bottom, as you have perceived. And when I was come there, I made a close search of the rock, and found it was very sweet and warm, and there were no serpents, neither any stinging creatures, so that a certain comfort came upon my spirit. Then stripped I off mine armour and gear, and afterward all my garments, so that I stood naked there in the hollow. Yet was that place almost so warm as some mild oven, and I had no fear to suffer from the cold of the nightland, but was uneasy lest that any monstrous thing should be anigh to come to take me so unawares. Now I wrung the garments, and spread them upon the rock near unto the fire-hole, where it was hot, and I did rub my body very brisk with my hands, so that I glowed into health, and had no fear of a stiffness. And afterward I did look to my food and drink, and to the matters in the pouch, but there had no harm come to any, by reason of the tightness of the scrip and the pouch that had kept off the water. And I eat and drank, there as I stood, waiting for the garments to come to dryness, and I walked about a little, as I eat, for I was restless to be into mine armour swiftly. And now I did turn this garment upward of the dry side, and now that, but did find them to steam, so that I turned them many times before they were proper. Yet, in truth, they dried in but a little while, and I gat me into them very swift, and into the armour, and I felt the strength and courage of my spirit to come back into me, which had gone outward somewhat when I did stand there so naked. And this feeling you shall all have understanding of, and know that you would have felt that way likewise, had you but stood there in that land in so unhappy a plight. And when I had come into mine armour, I put my gear upon me, and took the discus into my hand, and did climb out of the hollow, for I would find a more secure place to my slumber, and did not dare to sleep in that place, for it was beyond 37 hours since that I did have sleep, though as I do see by my count, I have made it to seem but as 35, yet was a part consumed in diverse matters that I have not set down. And you shall mind how bitter had been my labour and weariness in all that time. And I did know of a surety that sleep must come heavily upon me, so that I was sorely in need that I should search out a safe place, for I should not be lightly waked. Until that I had slept away the tiredness of my heart and the weariful achings from my body. And, indeed, I should mind you how that I was not yet come perfect from the bruising which I had gotten from the fight with the yellow thing. And presently, when I had searched but a little while, I did find that a rock stood upward from a great clumping of the moss bushes unto my left, and I went over to the rock and made a search about it. And I found that there was a hole into the bottom part of the rock, and I thrust the discus into the hole, and made the blade to spin a little, so that it sent out a light, but there was no thing in the hole, and it did seem a dry and safe place for my sleep. Then I turned me about, and went into the hole with my feet that way, and I found that it was so deep into the rock as the length of 2 men, and just so wide as I could lie in it without having it to pinch me. And there I made my bed in the hole, and went swift unto my sleep, and scarce had but a moment even to think upon Nani, and by this thing shall you know how utter was my weariness. Now I waked of a sudden, and was very clear and refreshed. And I crept to the mouth of the hole, and looked out, but there was all a quietness round about, and nothing to threaten. And I found that I had slept 10 hours, so that I made a haste to eat and drink, that I should go forward swiftly upon my journey. And at that time, as in the time when I did eat naked in the hollow by the fire hole, I eat 4 of the tablets, and this you shall understand to be rightly due unto me, in that I had gone so long fasting in, that my great journeying to come safe from the hound, and to come past the house of silence. And this shall seem but a little thing to you, yet was it a wondrous important matter unto me, that had gone so long with an empty belly, and was never satisfied, and neither should any be, that had eat so little as I did eat, and made to fill their belly always with a drink of water. Yet I doubt not but that it did keep my soul sweet and wholesome, and no useful thing to the powers of evil of the land. And when I had made an end of so great a gorging, and had ceased to be drunken with water, I gate my gear upon me, and took the discus into mine hand, and so went forth once more towards the north. And presently I was nigh unto the road again, for it did curve something westward, a space beyond. And I was sore tempted to go upon the road, for the ground was rough, and the moss bushes did catch my feet. Yet did I stay among the bushes, though the road was true and smooth by compare. And by this telling, you will perceive that I walked once more upright, and had given over to crawl between the bushes. And, in truth, this was so, for the land did seem very quiet in all that part, and I had less of fear. Now that I stood beyond the horrid unease of the house of silence, Now, after that, I had journeyed 12 hours. I saw that I was come upon the commencement of a great and mighty slope, as that the world did slope downward always towards the north. And I went on again. After that, I had eat and drunk, as I did likewise before this, at the 6th hour of that day's journey. And presently I perceived the road to cease. And surely this did confound me, as that a man of this age had come to a part where the world did end. For you shall know that the road was that which had seemed to go on for ever, and you shall mind the way of my life up till that time. And so shall you the better conceive of my bewilderment, and as it were a feeling of great strangeness unto one that was overpressed, as you would believe with strange matters. Yet, truly, was this all, as the little book of metal had told unto me? And so should I have been something prepared. Yet are we ever thus needing eye-proof? And perhaps it is more proper that it be so. Yet you shall perceive me adrift somewhat as to direction, for I had steered before this time, so that I should come to the north of the house of silence, and afterward had shaped my way by the road. But now was I adrift, as it might be set down in the wilderness. And so did I stand and consider, and presently did look unto the far pyramid, which was now a great way off in the night, and had seemed but small by that which I knew it to be. And lo, as I did look, I perceived that I could but see the high upper point of the light of the great pyramid, where did shine the last light. And I was confounded afresh. Yet in a moment I saw that the greatness of the slope did account for this. But here I should tell to you that the slope was nowise steep, but did seem as that it should never cease. And mayhaps this is clear unto you. And I perceived surely that the time was come when I should make an utter parting from the great redoubt, and the thought came very heavy upon me. And in the same time I knew that the ether was stirred by the emotions of the millions, so that I had knowledge they watched me with the great spyglass, and did send word down unto the hour slips. And by this did the millions know, and have a great thinking upon me in that moment. And you shall perceive how utter lost and lonesome I did feel. And it was at that time that I did test the compass, to comfort me, as I did tell before this, and feared I must sure forget, when I did come to the proper place, yet have I minded me, as I did desire. And I saw now that the night land that I did wot of was hid from me by the slope. And I turned and looked down the slope, and surely all before me was utter wildness of a dark desolation, for it did seem to go now hither, but into an everlasting night. And there was no fire down there, neither light of any kind, but only darkness, and, as I did feel, eternity. And downward into that blackness did the great slope seem to go for ever. Now, as I did stand there, looking downward into the dark, and often backward unto the shining of the final light, and put to a horrid desolateness, behold, there came the low beating of the master word in the night, and it did appear as that it had been sent to give me courage and strength in that moment, and did seem unto my fancy that surely it did come upward unto me from out of the mighty blackness into which the great slope ran. Yet could this have been but a belief? For the ether doth have no regard unto direction, to show you whence the spiritual sound doth come, and this did my knowledge and reason know full well. And I made that I would send back the master word, sending it with my brain elements, and so give news unto Nani how that I did struggle to come unto her. Yet did I have caution in time, for in verity had I sent the master word, then had the evil forces of the land wotted that I was out, and mayhaps had come swift unto my destruction. And so did I contain my spirit and desire, and made to do wisely. Yet was I put in courage by the low beat of the master word, and did listen very keen, that some message should follow. But there came none. Neither did the weak throb of the word come about me again at that time. And because that I was now grown more to my natural state, and did feel that I should indeed find the maid, I looked once more unto the great pyramid, long and eager, and with a solemn heart, yet with no sign or salutation, as I was before, determined. And afterward I turned and went downward into the dark. Down the mighty slope. Now I went downward, very quiet and slow into that darkness, and did make but a cautious way. For now you shall know me truly, wrapped about with such a night as did seem to press upon my very soul, and such as you shall never have seen nor felt. So that I did seem lost even from myself, and did appear as that I went presently in unreal fashion, and did pass onward for ever and for ever through everlasting night, so that odd whiles I did make to walk with random, as that I stepped no more upon this earth, but did go offwards into the void, yet was this foolishness of the mind set straight and proper each time that it did come about, for, lo, I did kick against an upjutting rock here, and fall upon a great and unseen boulder there, and so was shaken very quickly to a sound knowledge that I trode the hard and actual earth, and had no true dealings with unreal matters. And ever I did go downward, and by this only did I have a guide to my way. Yet, as you shall think, through reason of the utter dark I made scarce a mile in an hour, or even 2 full hours, and so grew bitter by reason of mine unableness to go forward with a proper and free stride. But I did think me presently upon a thing that I should do to light my path, and to this end I did make the discourse to spin odd whiles, and did look down the mighty slope, the little way that the strange listening of the discourse did show, and so fixed my path into mine inward remembering, and would go forward afresh, until that I was shaken once more by the darkness, and would fain to look once again upon the blessedness of light, and make me some knowledge of my way. And, truly, the light from the discourse did seem astonishing, great, and this to be because there was so monstrous a darkness all about me there for ever. And thereafter would I go onward again, until the pain of my stumblings did bid me surely to have that sweet shining once more unto my path. And so shall you perceive my going, and sore and miserable was it unto the heart, and like to shake the courage of the spirit, yet, in verity, I had come through much, and did have intent to give way to no foolishness of thought. And you shall well believe that I did make the light not more oft than I did surely need, for it was no properness of wisdom to use the power of the discourse, save for mine extremity. Now, presently, when I had done this wise through 6 long and bitter hours, and it being now beyond the 20th hour since I did last slumber, I sat me down there upon the mighty slope, in the everlasting dark, and did eat 2 of the tablets, and made the water, and could but feel and hearken whether I did this thing right and that. And when I had eat and drunk, I unfolded my cloak, and wrapped it around me, and placed the scrip and the pouch under my head. And the discourse I took to company me, and so fell swiftly upon sleep, yet did think earnestly but vaguely upon Nani, as I came unto slumber. And I slept all but 6 hours, and did waken very sudden there in the utter dark, and I got me to mine elbow, and did listen very keen, for I had waked immediately, as that something had touched me or come nigh unto me, and I gripped the discourse and listened. But there did not even a little sound come to me out of all that night, and presently I had more assuredness that naught did make harm about me, And I sat me up in the dark, and reached for my scrip, and did eat and drink, there in that utter night, and fumbled somewhat, as you shall think. Yet I was done in a while, and got my gear upon me, and the discus into my hand, and so to my feet and forward. Now all that day I did have a strange unease of the spirit, so that I stopped oft to listen, as that my soul told of something nigh unto me that did follow very quiet, yet did mine ears perceive nothing. And so I alway to go downward again into the night that held the slope. And here should I tell how that in the early part of the 7th hour, after I had eat and drunk, and went forward as ever, upon my journey down the mighty slope, I did have a very sore tumble against a sharp rock, for I put my foot sudden into a small hole, and this did make me to pitch. And I was utter shaked by the fall, and lay very quiet for a time, for the rock had surely ripped my body, but for the armour. And after that I was something renewed of strength and spirit. I made that I should go no more upon my feet, but upon my hands and knees, and thus should I feel the way that I went, and have a less need of the discourse, which had not overmuch use to light my way. In that I shone it not often, and did guess more than I did perceive, as you may think. And so I crept all that day, which was a bitter way of travel, yet had I done many a sore mile thus through the nightland. And when that I had gone downward for 18 hours, and eat and drunk thrice, I ceased from my labour, and did feel about in the darkness, that I come to a level place for my rest, and so did find, presently, a place not so bad, and did push and cast away such small boulders as had been like to irk me. Then did I eat and drink, and afterward composed me to my sleep, and had many a thought of Nani, as I did drift unto slumber. Yet also had I memories of the strange half-fear that had been with me all that day, as though something went constantly near me in the dark. And because of this, twice did I rise unto mine elbow, and listen, but heard no sound to trouble me, and afterward did trust that I did. But fancy! And so came at last unto slumber. That yet was not over restful, for truly I did listen, even as I slept. And when I had been asleep scarce 6 hours, I waked again very sudden, as I had done before, and had belief that something did be anigh unto me, and I gripped the discourse, and did hearken, yet was there no sound that mine ears did wot of, neither aught that had power to be surely known of the spirit. And all that day was as the day before, save that about the 8th hour I came near to fall into some monstrous pit in the great slope, but did only fall with my breast upon the edge, and so drew back, and presently did crawl all around it in the dark, and come safe unto the lower side, yet shaken, and put more in trouble of spirit than before, and fearful how I should go, for I knew not whether I had come among such things, or whether I had but few to sorrow me. And so you shall perceive that I went over cautious for a great while in all that utter dark, but did think at last upon a plan to go with more surety and speed. But to this I did need a cord, and surely I had no cord upon me. And if a boy be no boy, that hath none such about him, shall not the same be said of any man. And this I did think, as I searched me, for the sayings of that day had many that were like to this. Yet in the end I did compass my plan, for I did buckle the scrip and the pouch together, and took one of the straps from the pouch, and this strap was long and thin, and well suited unto my purpose. Then I fixed a stone into the end of the strap, and buckled it there, and after that I cast the stone before me, as I went upon my hands and knees, and I did hold to the hither end of the strap, and so was able to have something of knowledge, whether there lay any great deepness immediately before me. and this wise to strive that I fall not down some monstrous cliff in the night. And so did I go, casting the stone continually to my front, down the slope. And this you shall think to be a cumbersome fashion of travel, yet was I in better case than in all the time since I had begun to go downward of the mighty slope in the everlasting darkness. And at the 18th hour I did sleep, and was waked strangely before the 6th hour, even as I had waked before. And this did put always upon me a new wonder and unease. Yet did no harm seem to come unto me, and I did strive that I have no needful trouble of mind, but that something was always nigh unto me in the dark, I do truly believe. Yet have I no knowing that it was evil, for it harmed not me. And 3 days more I journeyed thus, and did never cease to creep downward, weariful upon my hands and knees, and the discos I had to my hip. And so shall you know how I carried it. And by this, as you do know, I had been on the great slope 6 days of utter dark, and did have no wotting but that I went unto some dire and dreadful place, for surely I had gone for ever downward a monstrous way. And here, before I tell further, I must set down how that the cold was much gone from out of the air upon the slope, and the air was grown, as it did seem, very heavy unto my chest. And concerning this matter I should say something, for, if I do mind me, I have said not overmuch concerning the air of the Nightland and the mighty pyramid, for truly I have been so set to tell my story of all that I did truly see and adventure upon. Yet, though I have said but little, you will surely have perceived that the air of that far and chill time was not as the air of this, but was thin and keen within the Nightland, and lay not, as I do think, to a great height above the land, but only nigh to the earth. And as you do know through my tellings, there was a wondrous difference between the air within the mighty pyramid and that which lay without around the base, for upward beyond that, I did understand that there was no outward air that any should breathe, and so was all the pyramid sealed in certain wise in all the upper cities for ever. And whether it was sealed utterly from the outward air at the base, I do not surely remember if, in truth, that I did ever bother my head to such matters. Yet, if I be set proper in memory and understanding, we did draw air from the underground fields, but whether they gave any change or newness of air from the Nightland, I have no knowledge, and do lament that I have no sure knowing. Yet, as you shall believe, I could surely write 100 books upon that wonder of the future, and be still lacking in the half of all that there is to be told, and so do I. Try to have courage to this my task, and to have no over trouble, because that I do tell but a little of a great tale. And here in this place will I set down how that the peoples of the pyramid were greater to the chest, methinks, than we of this age. But yet do I have no over surety in the matter. For well it may be that the reason of this age doth blind within me somewhat the knowledge that I have concerning that, for, in verity, is it not but a natural thing to believe those peoples to be great of the chest, so that they should make a proper dealing with the thin air of that place and that time? And yet, as I do strive to make plain unto you, because that this thing should be, by the making of my reason, I do the more distrust that reason shall make foolish my knowledge. For even a fool should suppose that which I have told, and the truth may be even otherwise. Yet that the peoples of the upper cities had great chests, I do well know, for this was a common knowledge, even as we of this age do acknowledge the peoples of Africa to be of blackness, or those of Patagonia to be of great stature. And by this one thing should any know a man of the upper cities from a man of the lower cities. And because that there grew this difference among the peoples, there had been once, as any could learn from the histories, a plan whereby the peoples should be moved upward and downward through the great height of the mighty pyramid, from this city unto that. Yet had it met with great disfavour, and was put out of force, and this is easy to be seen as the natural way of the human heart. And here it doth occur unto me, that it was like enough to be a plan for health, beside of training of the mind, that each youth and maid was put to travel through all the cities of the mighty pyramid, the which did take 3 years and 225 days, as I have told before this. For by this plan were they made to breathe the air of every height, and this mayhaps unto the good of their developing, and they also to discover that air which was best to their need. And concerning the air of the night land, you shall know that there was in all that land no flying thing, because that the air was grown very thin. Yet, as the records did show, there had once been monstrous flying brutes that went over the land in mighty bounds. But this was in a long gone age, and we could but suppose that the records gave truth. And here you shall know that when the monstruacans did learn that I would journey through the night land in search of Nani, there had been some foolish and well-intended talk among them that I take a small flying ship that was in the great museum beside the models of the great ships, for truly this machine was yet sound to go, for it was made of the grey metal of the mighty pyramid that did seem to have no power to cease. Yet, in verity, I had no skill to manage this, neither had it flown through 100,000 years, so that none did know the mastership of that art, which did be learned, but by a constant practice, and oft made uneasy by fallings that did wreck the machine, as I did know from the book of flying. And, moreover, as I have told, the air of the nightland was grown over weak to uphold such a thing, which, I doubt not, had made the peoples of the pyramid to cease from flyings, quite so much as that they did fear the forces of evil in the night. And if that there had been air and skill sufficient unto this purpose of flying, yet had I been wicked with foolishness, that I should work to be hung upward in the night, for all the evil of the night land to behold. And though I had gone up some great way, yet the machine had surely made a great noise in the quietness of the eternal night, as you shall suppose. Now indeed am I gone weary, that I should need to tell so much concerning the air of that time and place. For surely I do seem to make this my story, as that I did make a lecturing upon matters of chemistry, and so do I cast about, that I may not bother to tell more upon this matter. Yet, in truth, a little more of my thinkings and observings had I better set down here, and so be done with it. But you shall have patience with me, and know that had this, my story, been no more than an idle tale, I had been free to make no labour with such matters. Now there doth a wonder come to me, why that the road-makers, who were of that far-off age which was before the age of the mighty pyramid, did not fly downward from the upper world into the deep of the monstrous valley, but did instead build a road. Yet it may be that the air of the upper world had grown thin, a great age, so that they had truly forgot that once man did have power to fly. But even if that they did have proper machines to this purpose, surely it were a wondrous and fearful thing to fly downward 100 great miles, for they surely to have a dread that they never to rise again through so huge a deep. And, moreover, the downward world that was the bottom of the great valley was full of monsters, as was told in the little metal book, and the monsters were very strange and unknown, and foreign to the whole world, that had never come unto the deep of the valley. And the valley had come, as you shall mind, when the earth did split, and this thing was, in truth, like to be thought that same ending of the world which all nations have been taught to believe shall come. For in verity, when the world did split and burst, and the oceans rushed downward into the earth, and there was fire, and storms, and a mighty chaos. Surely it was proper to think that the end had come. Yet was it? In truth, but the beginning of hope of a new eternity of life, so that out of the end came the beginning, and life out of death, and good out of that which did seem a dire matter. And so is it always. Yet doth this go past my first wonder, which did concern the wherefore, that they made not to descend in things of flight. Yet, maybe, shall my reasons stand to show why this was not. And again, mayhap it did chance that some were wild adventurers, and did leap over the edge of the upper world, having to ease their flight certain contrivings, like to parachutes. And these you shall picture, as that you watch them to leap, and so shall you see them go downward into the gloom, and you shall see them for maybe 10 miles, and maybe for 20 miles, and afterward shall they be lost utterly in that great deep, and seen no more of any man for ever. But when the nations became road-makers, and came downward slowly to the monstrous deep of the mighty valley that did split the world, then were they come there by millions, and with power sufficient to fight against the beasts, and afterward to grow back again to an ancient civilizing, and so to the building of the great airships that were yet shown in the great museum of the pyramid. And here shall I cease from these my thinkings on this matter. For indeed, who shall say what did be truly a reason for those peoples, and what was their need? And so do I come to no surety by my wanderings. Yet, as you do know, all things do seem verily to go in a circle. For, behold, in time, they of the mighty pyramid were likewise held off from the glory of the airships, and so were gone backward a great way, according as we do look upon this matter. And so hath this been the way always, as you shall know who have studied and thought, and seen the true ways and goings of life. And now will I go forward in my telling, and here will set down a sure thing that I did perceive, both by mine ears and by my fingers. For, as I did make clear to you, but a while gone, there had come a change into the air as I did go downward of the mighty slope, and truly I was come to a great and new deepness, even beyond that of the wondrous depth, where did stand the last redoubt, so that I was afar down and in a monstrous night. And the air here was of a great thickness and abundancy, even as it might be the air of this our age, or maybe more, or maybe less. For who may compare two matters with a sure guessing, that do have an eternity to keep them asunder? And because that the air was grown very strong and apparent, it shall be, mayhaps, that it was by reason of this thing that the water, when I did make it, did fizz upward in a moment, very loud and plentiful, and did boil overward to the earth from out of the cup, and wet upon my hand. And surely this thought did come very keen to my reason, as I did fumble, each time of mine eating, there in the everlasting night and lonesomeness of the great slope. And so shall you have knowledge now of this and that thing which did come upon my thought, and of the little and the big wonders, and all shall help something to give unto you the ache of newness and bewilderment that was constant companion unto me. Now by this time, as I have said, I was gone downward ever for 6 great days, and I did seem as that I should presently come to the middle of the world, for of going downward there was no end. And then, when it did be that I was near ready to believe this, I perceived far off in the deep of the night a little shining that was yet weak and unsure. And I do not know whether I can truly give unto you the great astonishment and pain of hope that did come upon me, so that I grew sick in all my being but to behold once again the blessedness of light, and to have help unto my belief that I went not downward to an utter desolation. And I stood upward from my knees, and did look very earnest, and surely it did seem that a light was there afar, downward in the night, and again it did seem that I must be plagued by my hopes and by my fancy, and that there was nowhere any light. And then again I did see it very clear, and not to be mistaken, and I had a shaking to come upon me, and I gat me to a run, and made a great and mad speed down the dark slope, and lo, I was not gone any way, but I went headlong, and near brake myself, and could but hold my teeth together very fierce and quiet, until that the pain was something gone from me. And afterward I gat me again to mine hands and knees, and went slowly, as before, and so for a great hour or more, and did look oft, and alway the light became more plain to my sight, but ever to come and go, oddly wise. Yet did I go 6 hours. Before that I was come anywise near to it, and by this shall you know how great a space of it had been. And lo, when that I did seem surely anigh unto it, truly was it still far away in the night, and I came not indeed near to it, until that I was gone onward again for 3 hours more. And all that time did I yet go downward into the night, but the slope now did not be so utter dark. Now, presently, I made a pause, and stood upward to my feet, so that I should the better perceive the light. And lo! As I did look toward it, I heard a far-away sound in the dark, as that something did set up a strange and monstrous piping in the night. And immediately I went to mine hands and knees among the stones of the slope, and kept myself low in the darkness, so that I should be the less plain to be seen. Did any monster approach? But there came nothing to trouble me, and I went downward of the slope for yet another hour, and all the time that I did go, the sound of the piping grew more in the great eternity of the night upon the slope. And by this time was I come truly near unto the light, but yet did not behold it plainly, for it did burn beyond certain monstrous rocks that stood between. And I went to the left for, maybe, the half of a big mile, and all the while that I did go, the piping made a mightier whistling in the night, and it did seem presently as that the earth sent forth the sound and revelry of wild roarings. And I went the more silent, and later did kneel among 3 rocks, and peered forth for a while upon the place before me. And now, being come nigh unto the light, though yet it was not unhid from behind the great barriers of the uprising rocks, I perceived that I crouched within the mouth of a mighty gorge, and the left side was a great way off, and I saw it plain at whiles when the light did rise, but the light was to the right, and it was so wondrous great that it did make clear to me that a mountain was to that side of the gorge, and went upward into the everlasting night, as it did seem for ever. And afar down the gorge I did see the shinings of strange fires, faint and a great way off. And so was I come at last to the bottom of the mighty slope. Yet the gorge also to go downward, but not so great. And presently I did go forward again, and so did open the point of the rocks, as the sailors do say. And I saw now that there gushed forth a great blue flame from the earth, and the mighty rocks stood about it, as that they were olden giants, grouped there to some strange service. And concerning this flame, I was not overmuch astonished in my reason, for it had seemed to me as I drew anigh, that the fire and the sound should be made by the roaring and whistling of a burning gas that did issue forth among the rocks. Yet truly, though it did be a natural matter, it was yet a wondrous sight, and set amazement on my senses, for the flame did dance and sway witherward monstrously, and sometimes did seem that it dropped so low as 100 feet, and afterward went upward with a vast roaring unto the utter height, and did stand mighty and blazing. maybe a full 1,000 feet, so that the far side of the gorge was lit, and surely it was 7 great miles off or more, but yet did show plain and wondrous. And the light did show me the flank of the mountain that made the right-hand side of the gorge to go up measureless into the night. And so shall you perceive that I stayed a while among the rocks that were in the mouth of the gorge, that I should gaze upon this thing, but afterward I looked this way and that way, so that I should have a knowing of the place where I was come. And it was a wild and stark and empty place, as you must perceive. And the far side did be great miles off, as I did say, and everywhere there was abundance of rock and lonesomeness. And before me there went the great and dim length of the gorge, and there were lights here and lights there, in a great distance, and oft, as it did seem, the quiet dancing of lights in divers places, but yet were these gone on the instant, and ever there was a strong and vacant silence upon that place. And presently, after that, I had looked once more unto the mighty dancing flame, and perceived nowhere any life around it. I went onward down the quiet gorge, and for a great way as I journeyed was my path lit by the dancing of the blue flame, and oft should I seem to be going but dimly among the rocks, and my shadow faint and long, and lo! the flame would leap, and all the gorge come to a wondrous brightness, and my figure to shorten, and the shadows to be black and strong. And so shall you perceive how I went. And oft did I turn me about to behold the dancing of the great light, for it was solemn to my spirit, even amidst so much of greatness and eternity, to think upon that flame, and to conceive that it had an utter age danced there at the foot of the mighty slope, unseen through lonesome eternities. And this I do tell unto you, that thereby may you have some knowledge of the strangeness and the bitter loneliness of that place, which, in verity, did seem the expressing of all the lonesomeness of my wanderings. And all the time as I did go downward of the great gorge, there sounded the blast of the roaring, that was presently afar to my back, and the mountain sides did catch it here and in that place, and sent it offwards with strange and improper echoings, as of a chill piping, or oddwise as hushed whisperings of monstrous creatures, so that I did oft stoop to hide a little among the boulders. For truly I knew not, but that some unnatural thing called from the darkness of the mountain side. And for 6 hours I walked onward thus, and sometimes did hide, having a sudden fear, as I have told. And presently, in a great while, the roaring was sunk to a far and monstrous piping, but in the end to no more than a far and uncertain whistling that yet did catch strange echoes in the night. And in the end there was only a quietness, and yet, as you do perceive, there had been always a silence in that gorge, as I have told, and this to the despite of the whistling. And I do hope that you have understanding with me in this matter, for it was truly as I have told, and there is no contrariness of telling in this matter. Now in all this time that I had walked in the great gorge, I had passed 4 of the far lights that I did see from the bottom of the slope, and the 2 first and the 4th were blue, but the 3rd was green, and all did dance and quake, and sent fitful shinings into the belly of the gorge. And there came also from them whistlings, and from the 2nd one a low and strange moaning noise, and I doubted not the gas did come oddly, and with trouble. And I passed these things with no great thought, for truly they were no matters for notice after that which I had beheld. Now, as you shall mind, it was surely in the early 3rd of the 7th day of my journey down the mighty slope that I saw the first shining of the monstrous gas fountain, and from that time until now had there passed maybe 16 hours. And, as you do wot, I had eat not in all my travels since that I had seen the light, so that I was gone to a proper lack inward, and moreover, It was full 19 hours or more since that I had slept, and all that while had I laboured. And I ceased me from wandering, and looked about, that I should come to a safe and proper place for my slumber. And this I saw very quick, for there was dry stone and rock everywhere, and no failing of holes and divers places to my purpose, so that I was soon in a little cave between two mighty boulders. And here I eat 4 of the tablets, for truly so many were my due, and I had not been violent had I eat more. And afterward I made some of the water, and it did fizz up in a moment, so that I perceived that but a good pinch made a great cup full, and this I set to the count of the strong and heavy air, as I have told, which I did think to have a greater power of chemistry. And presently I slept, having my gear about me as ever, and the discus to my breast. And as I went into slumber, I thought sweetly upon Narni, as I had done, indeed, 100 times since I was come to the hopefulness of the lights of the gorge. Now, whilst I slept, I dreamed that the master word did presently beat all about me in the night. Yet, as I do mind, I waked not, and because that I continued to sleep, I have no sure knowing whether this was truly a dream or an happening. And I minded me upon it when I waked. But this was after that. I had slept 7 hours, and I could have no sureness anywise of the matter, but only that I was come safe through my sleep, though heavy within my head and limbs, as that the air did call me unto a further slumbering, as is like enough. And after that I had eat and drunk. I put my gear about me, and the discos to my hip, for I needed both my hands to the task of journeying amid the great boulders, and I set forth again down the half-light of the mighty gorge, and through 18 hours I made a strong going, save when I did pause at the 6th and the 12th hours to mine eating. And by the 18th hour was come, I was very ready to my food and slumber, and presently I was asleep in a place of the rocks. And that day had I passed 23 of the dancing gas fires, and 5 been like a white fire, but the others blue and green. And all did dance, and made a strange and uncertain light within the great gorge. Yet was it a peaceful thing unto my spirit that there was truly light, as you shall understand. And I slept 6 hours, and waked, and did want more sleep, as you shall think. But I eat and drunk, and put my gear upon me, and went on downward of the gorge. And at the 6th hour, after that I had eat and drunk, I came to a part where the big gas fires did cease to dance, and there was a certain darkness upon that place. Yet was it not a proper dark, for there came the glimmer of a flame here, and the glimmer of a flame there, as that little flames came upward between the stones, and did vanish, and come upward in another part. And so did light and die out constant and forever amid the stones and the boulders of that lonesome gorge, and made a low spread light, so that it did seem unto me that strange shudders of light beat upward through the dark of that place. And I went onward, and a heavy fume did seem to hang in the air, and horrid gases to come upward from the earth in odd puffings, and anon a light would leap upward beyond the next stone, and afterward vanish, and there would be 100,000 such upon every hand, running to and fore, and afterward for a moment an utter dark, and again the little flames everywhere, so that it did seem I went one moment amid the heart of a strange country of fire, and immediately through a country of utter night. And this was to me strange and a peculiar matter. Yet, as I do think, the gases did bother me the more, for they did seem as that they were like to hurt mine health utterly, for, in verity, oft did I seem as that I should choke and breathe no more, by reason of the poison that came upward from among the stones and the boulders. And all that time, as they came or went, did the little flames make small flocks of sound in the gorge as they did flash or die, and the sounds did seem, to my likening, as stones cast into an utter silent pool, for they but made apparent the everlasting quiet of the gorge. And afterward I came beyond this place, and you shall see me going very lonesome among the rocks of the gorge beyond. And by this it was come nigh unto the 18th hour, and I did find a place proper to my slumber, and did eat and drink, and was quickly gone over unto sleep. And here I should tell how that I had not an over fear of evil powers, whilst I was in the great gorge, for truly it did seem as that nothing that ever did live came anigh to that wild and silent place of stone and rock, but that I journeyed through it alone, and was surely the first that did go that way for maybe 1,000,000 years. And this feeling that was upon me I do hope you to perceive and take unto yourselves, and thus have an understanding of my heart at that time. And as you shall know, I went always unto slumber with sweet and with troubled thoughts of the maid. Yet, for a great while, I had been put so mightily to the labour of my way, that my heart did suffer less at this time than should be thought. And truly it doth show me how I was drawn unto that one with all my being, that I did surely think so oft and sweetly upon her amid so many perils and matters of horror. And this doth seem something strange to say, when that you do consider that I was adventured unto these same perils and horrors, but only for the sake of the maid. And in 6 hours did I wake, as I did strive alway to set myself to do, yet was I very heavy and slow for a little, until that I was more properly come to wakefulness. And surely, as I did think before, this was like to be put upon me by the weighty air of the place, but yet it might be that the gas which did float in the gorge was upon my lungs. And also, as you have perceived, if but you have attended my way, the air was grown warm, and oft were the rocks pleasant to the seat, and all of these matters did contrive to make me slumbrous. Now, presently, the gas fires did cease utterly in the gorge, and I looked downward, along that great place, and saw only a greyness. But above the greyness there was, as it did seem, something of a vague and ruddy shining in the night. And this did wake me to wonder what new thing lay before, so that I grew more eager among the boulders. And, later, when I had eat at the 6th and the 12th hours, and gone on a while, I came to a place where the gorge made a quick turning unto my left, and at the end of the turning was a red and glowing light that was very great and wonderful, so that I was utter keen to come to that place, that I should discover what made the shining. And the place where I was come then was very dark, because that I was nigh under the mighty wall of the mountain of the right side of the gorge. Yet above, as it did seem to me, there was a far red upward glowing in the night. Then did I go forward very fast, and presently, in a good while, I discovered that I drew near to a second great turning, that went to the right, and about the 17th hour I came nigh unto the second great turning. And here did I put caution upon me, and crept for a while among the dark rocks of that place, that I should come to a sight of that which made the monstrous red shining. And presently I was beyond the corner of the mountain, and did look downward into a mighty country of seas and the burning of great volcanoes. And the volcanoes did seem as that they burned in the seas, and the country was full of a great ruddy light from the volcanoes. And so shall you perceive me there among the rocks that did all stand upward, strange and bold and silent in the red and monstrous glare of the light. And I, as it did seem, the one thing of life in all that desolation and eternity of rock and stone, there in the end part of the great gorge. And I peered forth into the wonder of the light, and was full of thrillings and fancies that I was surely come to the place where the lesser redoubt had been builded. And immediately I knew that this was not so, for surer had not Nani told how that they were in a land of darkness. And if this did be so, truly, how wondrous and dread a way had I yet to go, if that this country of seas and mighty volcanoes stood between. Surely, it did seem to me then as that I must wander searching unto the world's end. And so shall you be company unto me there with my trouble and my thoughts, and the immediate wonder and strange glory of that mighty country.